evening in the OPC Season 2 Qualifier. I'm AVRL. Joining with me still is Pixie as we're about to head into the lower bracket match and also the final match to determine who will make it into Season 2.
Yeah, and well, that is going to be between DeToNator Korea and Libalent Supreme. Ardiant already going through, and what has been an absolute storm to victory from yesterday through to today. Both 3-0s taking out just now DeToNator Korea, and I kind of touched on it before the break. Libalent Supreme, they now come into this match fresh, whereas DeToNator, they come into it fresh off a loss. They got to turn their mentality right around if they want to still have a shot at qualifying.
Absolutely, and I think at least for DeToNator Korea, they will have had a little bit of warm-up time, and you couldn't really have hoped for better warm-up time than to play against so far the best team, at least in the qualifier. And look, Ardiant, by far the strongest team we've seen in this qualifier, and definitely even a playoffs-worthy team considering the current scope of the OPC teams anyway. But DeToNator Korea and also Libalent Supreme, their history would suggest this would be a very close game.
Absolutely would. That's the reality of the situation. They've got a 3-2 record against each other, with DeToNator Korea barely coming out the better of that. That was earlier in the qualifier, but of course, Libalent was still able to come through into this particular part of the qualifier anyway. They both had a 3-1 result against Talon, but DeToNator Korea has actually looked closer on a map-to-map basis. So, like we said again before the break, when you compare the two in that kind of raw numerical sense, the jury's out. There is absolutely nothing conclusive either way. Not the likes of, you know, what Ardiant had coming into this with this undefeated run or anything like that.
I would say so as well. I think it would be difficult to try and predict too early what the results of this match will be. I would like to say that if you were going to go with past results, you would probably say it would to be DeToNator Korea. However, Libalent Supreme, I would say this is still a team that had some pretty good showings yesterday, and I think has a decent potential as well to really be Japan's last hope to get into the OPC.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Last hope, because they had two teams in OPC Season 1, Sun Sister and DeToNator Gold, who both ended up in relegation. Sun Sister were knocked out. DeToNator, the organization, traded off the spot, took out the Japanese squad and put in DeToNator Korea in that same spot. So, honestly, there is now a very real chance that Japan will have no representation in OPC Season 2. So, in a sense, this is the hopes of a nation now riding on Libalent Supreme, who, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, represent something like 3 out of 6 of their national team for the World Cup. 2 out of 6. There we go. So,
of course, the two are Jasper and Darrington as well.
Yeah, players that are looking pretty nifty themselves. Just to quickly recap the rosters for those of you just tuning in: DeToNator Korea consisting of Trona, Raphael, Bexel, Ivar, Nakyup, and Kim, whereas Libalent Supreme, Pepper, Hotate, Darrington, Kaisuke, Selene, and Jasper.
Already pretty good positional start for Ellis right off the top of the bat. 1v1 in the backside with the Trace as well. Trona will get that early pickup.
Yeah, Trona very, very focused on that one to close out that 1 versus 1. Now they put on the aggression as well, losing him, but trading with that with Selene, and Kotate is a little bit too deep. Now won't actually be able to retreat, and DeToNator Korea coming out very much the better of this. The trades are decent though for Libalent, so they will have a window to get back into this, given that Ivar won't get his mech back in any hurry.
It certainly hasn't been one-sided so far, in a much more staggering difference between this match and the one we just saw. Ardiant, absolutely, the very opening fight was so one-sided. DeToNator Korea coming back with a massive, huge vengeance, and Trona with a fantastic double kill right off the bat. I mean, it's kind of like DM the other way around.
By the way, Ivar took a dive there, so there was actually a very good window for Libalent. They haven't quite capitalized on it, and Hotate, pressured out from that health back. It's very unfortunate because now he's closed off from the team. Bexel following up on that, and now Libalent looking very much worse for wear, not quite able to close out on Bexel themselves. And good cleanup there actually by DeToNator to convert on what was actually a window for Libalent. And
Ellis have lost now 2 fights in a row. DeToNator Korea putting themselves further and further forward in terms of progress on the percentage marker, but also in terms of the ultimates. And Ellis got to fight up against quite a lot now. Defensive ultimates will be the biggest thing because there's no offensive tools Ellis can really leverage to get themselves a hit here.
Now let's see what they do for this next one. There's the pulse bomb out from Trona. It does go wide, but this is very deep here for Darrington, and Kaisuke already picked off on the backside. Raphael getting taken out though is a good trade for them, as Darrington holds onto his life by using his ultimate. They've lost both their healers though, so they have to really convert fast, and converting onto him is a good way to go to that end. Now, losing Raphael earlier in that fight as well means he gets to rejoin now, but Pepper getting pressured out, that's very unfortunate. Now Darrington and the whole squad, in fact, is going to have to do the work of that extra DPS as DeToNator are able to come back in with their both of their Hotate retreats. Ooh, sound barrier to save him. Opens up with the Dragon Blade. Not really finding much.
Yeah, this is really disappointing, unfortunately, for Hotati. He barely lived as a result, and Dragonblade used right at the end during Sound Barrier, but can't get anything. And speaking of can't get anything, Raphael's struggling as well.
Similar situation. That's because at least Selene did have his ultimate up, but with that now run out, he gets converted on and DeToNator. It was very prolonged, but they actually held it out long enough. They whiffed their ultimates, but absorbed Libalent, and then didn't quite get much off their own, but they had at least evened up the score, and then just went on a fragging spree at the end here to close this one out, 99-0. But my goodness, that was a very protracted and very close fight at the end.
And it was the only fight in the game that was really going Alice's way, at least at the start. They came in hugely disadvantaged, no offensive ultimates, one defensive ultimate at least online for DeToNator, the other one coming online, killing him before he got his Transcendence available was a really big factor for Alice's success, because on the other side, it was Nekyup who held onto Sound Barrier for a decent amount of time before eventually popping it out. It wasn't until the Sound Barrier came in that DeToNator really started to make it their own. Of course, the whiffed Dragonblade from Hotati definitely didn't help on the other side.
Because that was actually Libalent's opportunity to close it out. But that is the thing, they were just a little bit shy of actually closing that out, evening up that point a little bit. And who knows, maybe they could have held out completely as well. So certainly not over. But one thing has to be said. If DeToNator are reeling from their loss against Ardian, they're certainly not showing it.
Not showing it this match. I think they're coming in much harder than they were against Ardian, and they definitely needed to close out this against Libalent Supreme and collect their victory ticket to
Good trade back though. They did at least get Naki up, but now Trona is able to just completely aggress. Going totally unanswered for here. No one dealing with Trona himself, and Pepper not really pulling the same weight on the side of Libalent. So that's a much cleaner looking fight win there for DeToNator.
And it feels like much of what we saw already onto Sanctum, with Trona opening up with the first couple of kills, opening with damage and assisting teammates in getting kills as well. So a really big factor in the start of both now team fights, and this will continue. DeToNator are not looking to stop here.
Really, not at all. That's a good assessment. Look at how far forward Trona is playing. And again, it's actually not being answered. The rest of Libalent are just trying to round around and go to the point itself, which means, honestly, Trona could just cut them off on the backside. That's exactly what he does now, as Vexel is able to take out Hotati, who is far too deep. Libalent finding themselves lean on tanks and DPS now, as Trona still unanswered for. Pepper trying to do the same, and he is getting a little bit more work done this time around, but, oh, wow, never mind that. Trona double with the Pulse Bomb. It is only Jasper's mech, but wow.
And the rotation is going to be really good here for DeToNator as well, because off the back of one Pulse Bomb, they're going to get this next fight win 2 in a row already. Him's already got an ultimate, so does Raphael, so does Ivar, and they're set up to continue the snowball rolling, just rotate these ultimates through. Raphael can Dragonblade next, clean up another team fight, live with the Transcendence from him, and suddenly Ellis just don't have a way to break in.
Yeah, now, honestly, this is really rough for them. They need to get a lot of mileage out of either Pepper's Pulse Bomb or Jasper's Self-Destruct, but Raphael is getting mileage out of Justice's Dragonblade. Kill box indeed. Darrington going down before you can get that Primal Rage as well means no stall and no real trade backs there, despite catching Trona and him. Yeah, that's because Selene was actually sitting on the point. Trona came in to deal with him and died. And actually now Pepper pulling some weight with the Pulse Bomb means actually they may be able to do this. DeToNator kind of have the gun for the point. They have got themselves an ultimate here, but Selene using his Transcendence there buys Libalent time. They're kind of having to flood away from the point now. This is a bit dicey for both teams, to be honest. I'm surprised DeToNator haven't just seeded this and gone in for a better fight later.
Actually, both teams just wanted to keep this one going, but the longer DeToNator try to commit onto this, the more progress Alex get, and eventually DeToNator do come out on top, and they're also going to be the ones sort of reeling from this, and they will be forced to reset with 70% already gone. If they got to get out of this, they got to get out fast.
That was really rough because it was down to the wire as well. They backed up to give a little bit of space, and were then going to re-aggress, but unfortunately that little bit of space gave the point cap over, and then the re-aggress just slightly misfired, so DeToNator got the cap back and got a bunch of kills immediately after. That was really rough for Libalent.
That was a nice, I guess, sneaky play from LS, but they needed to sort of, I don't know, I think I kind of feel like they're overcommitted to try and keep that point alive when realistically they didn't have a good chance. The Transcendence coming in just for the contest. There were no members to really take advantage of the Transcendence, and now Trona might just collect Selene before the fight even begins.
Oh, good open up by Hotati though. That's what they've been needing. Taking out Nakyup and him, demeching Ivar. They're looking much better, and Pepper the only one to go down. Raphael actually committed the Dragonblade, but he's no one-man army. That's actually a really odd commit, I think. Not efficient use of the ult because the cap was already effectively Libalent's by that point.
Tade, he really opened up that gap, I think. Double kill both on the supports as well. DeToNator Korea had a couple of options for them. First off was they really needed to get the kill on Selene and then maybe try and get one into Keisuke, and that would have really evened the healing advantage that Alice did have in that fight, but I think for DeToNator, just exiting probably would have been the best choice.
Yeah, and actually credit to Libalent as well. That was very, very well executed, very cleanly done. And part of it was DeToNator wasn't able to cut off the healers, but picking off Raphael as well. Good pulse bomb onto the mech here, but if all they really get here is Hotate and demeching the Diva, it's probably not enough here. Actually, they do fully convert onto Jasper. Selene has actually opted to not commit the Transcendence, which could have saved some lives. That's the self-destruct rather, out of Ivar. He does get picked up before he can get back in the mech, so that is good for Libalent. They will be able to hold on to this, and actually nicely held, despite losing a couple of members throughout that fight.
And actually, in terms of ultimate rotations, the defensive, or rather the offensive ultimates with Hotate and both Pepper coming online will give them the ability to continue this progress going up, and they might just be able to hit the 99%. We will go into, I would believe, double overtime, or double overtime for both teams now. It's going to be pretty tense.
Yeah, DeToNator also really committed ultimates they didn't need to. Oh, trades and trades and trades, but Hotate going down is huge because that was that Dragon Blade, which was much needed. But Raphael, another good trade. Ooh, closing out on Jasper before he can get back into the mech is big, but they demech Ivar as well. So Bexel could be the hinge of this one as Hotate is respawned, is trying to get back in, and Darton is buying that sort of time. DeToNator, if it goes off with this pulse bomb, could totally swing it as well. But here's the re-entry of Hotate, as was heralded, as it were, but the ultimate straight out of Bexel. The counter that went out, Hotate forced off, just barely goes down. Selene actually securing that. He swapped over onto Soldier for the extra DPS from the final fight. The cap has gone back the way of DeToNator though. This is looking a little bit rough for Libalent, really trying to close this one off as Selene gets picked. No one's left to really contest this one. Jasper is there. Oh, and DeToNator forced off at the 11th hour now as Ivar goes down to the pulse bomb and the extra damage. Raphael, hold on.
He has a Dragon Blade. He's absolutely cleaning up. That's why I said he had to live, because he was sitting on about 95-ish kind of percent. He's just got to get a little bit of extra damage in, then he can clean up and secure that match for DeToNator, and absolutely did.
That was much tighter than the first one though, and to be honest, very much within striking distance of Libalent. A quick pick onto Raphael right at the end would have been the difference between winning and losing. Much like before that, Hotate getting a Dragon Blade on the previous map would have been the difference between winning and losing potentially. So these two teams very evenly matched, and not just because they're 1-for-1.
And it came off the back of a couple of interesting individual plays, the first of which was they managed to get the cap over, sneak in an extra 25% before giving it back to DeToNator. And then later on, while you had DeToNator trying to chase down Selene on the back line, you had Hotate picking up both him and Nakyop on the actual cap itself. So that really pushed Alice ahead and put them into that 99% mark where they can really challenge for the victory.
This is looking a little bit rough now. Libalent, they do need to pick themselves one up here. Unfortunate that it is currently 2-0 in the way of DeToNator, but first scrap going very much the way of DeToNator. Good response kill onto Selene though, so they can keep themselves alive here, DeToNator. Pepper able to go off though. The pick on Bexel could swing it, but DeToNator isn't really answered for. They're converting the kills anyway, so DeToNator going unanswered doesn't really matter too much, but hold on a second. Now it's suddenly mattering as he picks off Darton, and suddenly Pepper, he's struggling to do the same amount of work. DeToNator just had that little bit extra in the tank because Hotate only just respawned, whereas Raphael's been in this the whole time, and now it's starting to pay off a little bit. Raphael finally getting picked means DeToNator will have to back out, and I think Libalent will be able to secure themselves on this point. DeToNator's really working overtime to try and make this one
It really
happen.
depends, because if DeToNator lives, then Ellis rather are not going to be able to get this. Finally getting the kill on DeToNator, and immediately they get the cap over, because DeToNator was the only one realistically keeping it alive still for DeToNator. And for the first time in the opening fight of Nepal, we're not seeing DeToNator just completely go off and get a double kill, maybe even a triple kill. He just got one towards the end of the Darton, but aside from that, just trying to contest and allow DeToNator to respawn in time.
Yeah, and he wasn't going off, but he wasn't not going off either. It's not like he was being shut down, so he still had plenty of space to play with. Good pick onto him, and with Nakyop going down as well. These are really back and forth, but losing Ivar is big for big in favor of Libalent, rather. They should be able to secure this one. Purely because DeToNator probably don't have the members to keep committing, but Bexel goes in with the ultimate, actually, as Raphael is forced to back off, goes down as well. Good follow-up by Jasper, and suddenly Bexel alone on the point. Darton using his ult to save his life at the last second, and I do agree with that, because respawns coming in from DeToNator means an actual death there. Could have hurt Libalent, but they are going to hold the point for now.
And they have both support ultimates, while DeToNator have both attacking defense, or rather DPS ultimates. So Libalent Supreme racking up a decent advantage here in terms of progress. This isn't something they've had had so far on either of the other two Nepal maps, but so far onto Shrine, they are getting themselves a care, but Trona has something to say about it.
Good D-Mech onto Jasper there, and also picking Keisuke. Raphael would have to do a lot here. In fact, he doesn't even need to do a lot here. Hotari would have to do a lot rather, but he's not going to. Raphael didn't have to do anything at all, actually. He sat on the lounge here and watched.
The fight should not have gone that way. You have both Sound Barrier and Transcendence, and yet neither of them came on through to save Libalent Supreme. A lot of question marks regarding what happened to LS, because they had all the tools to actually keep themselves alive, stall out the point for a little bit longer, collect the progress, go into the high 90s, but none of that happened.
And unfortunately, Keisuke getting picked right at the top of that really was what made that good bump, though.
And again, no defensive ultimates.
Yeah, no defensive ultimates. The first ones to be picked off. And honestly, Bexel and Trona are so clean on these dives. Even when Bexel got that little bit displaced so that he couldn't insta-give Keisuke, they had to follow up anyway. It's like they're just not reading the situation here, Libalent.
DeToNator getting away with so much here because they should not be winning these fights, at least not this easily, when you consider the two defensive ultimates should be keeping everyone in Libalent Supreme alive, allowing them to get the counter trace. Now him's got a Transcendence as well, and still LS, they got a decent lead, but it's fading away. There's only 22% between the two teams. Oh, and finally, the
finally, straight into a Transcendence though. So Selena's gonna have to use his own Pulse Bomb out. Does do good work on Jasper's mech. In fact, helps them de-mech him, but they've picked off him. They do take out Jasper, and Ivar will be able to get back into his mech. So Libalent, they're gonna still struggle a little bit to get really onto this one, but with Raphael low, if they can convert that, they have a chance. Hotari trying, does make it happen. Very low himself though, and desperately trying to convert onto this Winston here, but Bexel, he's not killing Hotari, but he's not dying to him either. He is, however, stalling out, and Trona again is still unanswered. Pepper's still doing work though on the side and keeping himself alive. Libalent still have a lot to go off here if they want to keep committing. Good pick onto Nakia, but Trona able to pick Daraton means that Hotari has to back out, and he doesn't back out safely either. He didn't have tanks to support him going in, so oh dear, this is really rough. Right when they needed to go in and convert kills, they lost their tank, and indeed too late now.
LA's got a reset, but they don't have time to do that. They just have to get and contest the pot cap immediately. They have to throw all the bodies onto the point itself as the overtime goes in.
Daraton right onto the sound barrier anyway, so no one's even getting closer to the point aside from it. Hotari goes on for a second, but he's going to get picked off. Pepper's going to try and go on for a second, but probably won't last long either. And then Jasper will fly in, now going to lose the mech, and then his life immediately after. Good. Oh, Celine, yeah, but not enough to save Jasper's mech. They may be able to get it back though. They need to convert kills, and it's just not happening. Raphael is cleaning this one up through and through. Libalent, they've still got a few members, but they're either respawned or not really on the point just yet. This is so rough. Last member standing is Hotate. He goes down 99 to 70. That's a rough way to lose it because Libalent held that for so long.
Calling the team janitor because Raphael mops up right at the end. 5 kills in a row, dashes in there, Dragon Blades in there as well, Shurikens, you name it. Play of the match, it's not a surprise whatsoever. And for Libalent Supreme, there comes a time when you're sitting about the 80-ish kind of percent mark, you need to decide, can we back out here? Because if you can, maybe you should reset, because that's your final opportunity to actually reset. After that, you're done. You're gonna have to just throw your bodies onto the cap, which is exactly what happened. And they're still waiting for respawns at roughly the 98-ish kind of percent mark. You see Selene just run in there with a Transcendence. The second one we've seen in the series where he's forced to use it just to stall out, just to contest, and it's not even an ideal situation.
You could probably go ahead and make a janitor Genji skin at this point. Like, you know, he pulls out a great big mop instead of the sword, and like for the shuriken you could throw like little Scotch-Brite sponges or something. like I feel like this would be a very doable thing there. And like instead of what's the small blade? I think it's the Shoto.
Yeah, it's a dustpan, and you deflect dirt.
Yeah, I like that. I like that actually. I like that you have the dustpan, and I think for like when he uses the quick melee, it could just be like a little spray of like Ajax spray or something like, you know.
Oh, Raphael, that was a great finish, and he usually is the one that we've seen across the entire Nepal series where he gets the ultimate at the end and he just cleans up the entire enemy team. And so far, that was a pretty clean sweep, 3-0 onto Nepal. DeToNator looks set to continue rocking on through. Maybe they will qualify this evening. They just have to get through 2 more potential maps, and the next map will be picked by Libalent Supreme, and that's all happening after this break. Thank you for sticking through that break with us as we're about to continue the final match of the evening between DeToNator Korea and Libalent Supreme to see who will be the final team entering into OPC Season 2.
And already the first one has been pretty good. I think that would be a fair assessment. Of course, Control went to Nepal. DeToNator.KR taking that one out. It was a 3-0, but one of those was a little one-sided. The other two actually came down really, really close, one of which was a 99-99. So certainly not over for, in fact, either of these teams. This is no Ardiant versus DeToNator or Ardiant versus Libalent. This is DeToNator versus Libalent. Different ballpark. Same game, though.
I think for DeToNator.KR as well, so far at least, as far as history goes, when we look at the Talon matchup, when we look at the Ardiant matchup, Control has been their weakest, and now that they've overcome that 3-0, they look set to continue rolling on through in very clean fashion. Libalent Supreme now picking up their second map, or rather choosing the second map, and it is King's Row.
I want to know what part of London that is, because there isn't a single building there worth complaining about.
Really?
Yeah.
Normally
all the high rises in the background, they look absolutely fantastic, which leads me to believe that this is a highly fictionalized London.
Oh.
Yeah. Their skyscrapers,
what makes you say...
Their skyscrapers are
Really?
deeply unpopular. They have one called the Walkie-Talkie. You could look this building up. It's got a concave surface, and what would happen on summer days is the sun would bounce off that surface, and it would basically focus the sun's rays, and was like actually melting cars. Like, not quite the metal of the cars, but like it was melting the rubber. It was damaging cars. For real. This is a real thing that happened. Look up Walkie-Talkie London skyscraper.
They do something about that?
Yeah. Between that and the Gherkin, they've got some really weird looking skyscrapers. Oh, they also don't give them cool names. Like what's it? Like over in one of the places they got like the Petronas Tower or like Taipei 101. Like they got some really cool ones. Then in London, we've got the Gherkin.
Does it look like a gherkin?
It does. Well, I would say it looks like an extended egg. It doesn't really look like, I don't know, like it's not knobbly enough to be a gherkin.
This is definitely a very interesting part of town because you've got this refinery, or rather this sort of forge kind of looking area.
Just totally open to the public.
Now show them.
Just come on down. Like, because this is the Omnic area, so it's like a threat. It's like,
that's right,
maybe that's Omnic jail.
This is the Omnic area of town, right?
Yeah.
Why is there a bookstore? Do Omnics read books?
I mean, they're allowed. What the?
I don't know. I'm just thinking. You're on Omnic. You would download a book into your brain, maybe.
In Numbani, they have an ad for an oil for Omnics, and it's like it's meant to obviously look like a fine whiskey or something, and it's called Glen Wales. That's my obscure Overwatch trivia that I've now shared with 100 people.
And it's just oil.
It's oil. It's oil, yeah. So I don't know how that oil is consumed. Like I imagine you like pour yourself a nice fancy glass of it, you swill it for a bit, and then you just pour it over your joints.
Well, I like that Overwatch is optimistic enough to believe that oil still exists in this timeline, but here we go.
That's a good point. I think by oil, it's like a lubricant, like an industrial lubricant, but both teams now, never mind the lubricant.
At least need some lubricant.
Yeah. But there's now DeToNator out of the gate here. Actually, it's Libalent Supreme on the defense, having lost Selene, but they're putting up a solid fight here. Really trying to keep this one alive for themselves. Actually, my apologies, it is Libalent on the attack. And being fairly unrelenting.
And so far, yeah, absolutely. I think, you saw DeToNator just on the sidelines. Pepper's actually going to challenge this 1v1.
Yeah,
the halfback's already gone. So
I like the challenge, but unfortunately they just leave Selene a little bit exposed. Now the rest of the team kind of crumbles as Darton and Jasper retreat. Yeah, good pick on for him though, actually. They'll get respawns through quick enough, assuming Pepper doesn't go down. That's terrible overextension there by Pepper to die. Needed to retreat a lot earlier, and now that window where him was dead is gone.
Exactly, so it's definitely tough rather to push on through. Now you're fighting into ultimates. This is about in the game where you had a very neutral ground. Ultimate's starting to come to play. DeToNator can really swing this one around if he gets a good bomb.
Oh, it goes wide. Yeah, not what they need, but they are in behind them, so they can still collapse. And Ivar hasn't actually been demexed yet. Now is that behind them collapse there as they go ahead and pick off Selene. Oh, holds his own, picks off DeToNator. Raphael does close it out, but that being a 1-for-1 is terrible now for DeToNator actually, as they can't really come back in to regroup here. Libalent are on the point. Raphael is going to try and go in and contest, but he's just going to get taken out by Darton, and now Libalent have set themselves up on the point. Honestly, DeToNator aren't giving it up without a fight, but it is going to be a lost fight. Ivar going down just as he was able to recall the mech, and now Libalent well set up here. Lots of ultimates as well, but they probably won't even need to use them.
You hope they won't need to use them too early, because DeToNator had the option. Perhaps they were going to just jump in for the last minute contest. That may have really tried to blow a few ultimates out of Alice as well, but the 1v1 win for DeToNator does speak to DeToNator's ability to now try and hold this bookstore area, which is their next area for control.
Yeah, tried to also get a good dive on Sanakap. Not quite getting it, but you're right, DeToNator with that opportunity now. Libalent have a ton of ultimates though, so assuming this fight doesn't go too ski-whiff, they should be able to get ahead.
For DeToNator as well, they have a lot of ultimates. To be honest, both teams...
my mum says.
Well, both teams have 5 ultimates now, so DeToNator can still really contest this, and this is going to be a very expensive fight on both sides.
Yeah, expensive indeed. Is already the sound barrier out. Hotate going ahead with the Dragon Blade, getting a lot of work done with it as well. Picking Bexel is pretty massive, and actually taking out him means that Nano Boost that was committed didn't really get too much worth either. Trona had to back off. They got nothing for anything they used their DeToNator, and they used a fair amount. Libalent used a good number of ultimates themselves, but honestly, they have 3 up and have an advantage.
A big difference there was, Nakyup, I don't think he had the sound barrier up, if I'm not mistaken.
It was neck down.
Yeah, well, that's one way to put it. And so the 2 support ultimates on the LS side definitely had a lot more factor in keeping everybody alive. LS is going to continue to push on through now. DeToNator haven't stabilized. They haven't found any sort of defensive position where they can stabilize into a good fight. Even still now being pressured out from even contesting the final movement of the card.
Yeah, we're able to consume the Pulse Bomb out of Pepper though, which is a nice start for Ivar, but now very lean on ultimates as Bexel commits his, trying to disrupt the backliners, but honestly, he can just get collapsed upon. He needs to be careful. Raphael going aggressive pays off, but Jasper paying off even more, even demeching Ivar in there for good measure. Darrington committing his ultimate might not have been super necessary, but it will secure the fight, and this is on the cusp of capping, so that's a well-timed ult, and capping this one over is very nice for Libalent.
It's a huge snowball play from Libalent as well now as they're going to push on through. I don't believe DeToNator can actually hold this, at least on the second cap. They're already going to fall back to 3rd. If they haven't stabilized by now, they're
Jasper
really
Darrington
rushing a
taking
really
this round.
quick cap by LA, so they need the ultimates. They got a couple up already. They need to leverage this now.
They have the high ground as well, which is really good. It means DeToNator actually have to dive onto it, but bumping Darrington is a really great way to start from that. Actually, Jasper as well does end up going down, so unfortunately it means Libalent can't quite go for the really hard snowball. Oh dear, not quite covering their retreat path adequately either as Pepper gets picked off, but this is only the first time Libalent have truly been stopped up.
And, being stopped up here is also quite dangerous because DeToNator have the ability to fully hold the section. There are hidden ultimates. They can rotate quite effectively. Double support ones in there. And a big pulse block could really swing things over.
Doesn't quite work out though, but DeToNator are trying to pincer in Libalent, go for the wraparound. Double Transcendence kind of shoots that horse in the face now as the fight breaks out in earnest. DeToNator committing all their ultimates. Sound barrier out doesn't quite save Celine, but Hotate going to go aggressive now. Unfortunately, what he finds is Bexel to start it off, but he's going to be able to find Nakup as well, given that Bexel was low enough. He got that reset in. And now picking off Ivar's mech, he may want to commit the self-destruct. Actually, I think he's opted not to. Wow, Raphael. Someone buy this man an industrial lubricant. Actually, he doesn't need one. Those joints are well oiled.
I would say so. They look, they definitely look like they're functioning well above standard.
Just totally turned that fight around, by the way, when it was on the cusp of being lost.
I know. What would happen if the other 3 Ninja Turtles showed up? This would be a massacre.
What would happen if Hotate was using the same lubricant?
Yep, this is why you need to buy whatever it was called.
You need to buy Glen Wales. Go to Nabani, buy Glen Wales. Trona, again, look at how often they're just doing this exact same play. This time they don't actually quite close out on Celine, but they pick up Pepper on the front lines instead. Darrington's forced to ultimate. They do convert onto Bexel and Ivar's mech. That's good for them, but they really need to force out Trona and Raphael because Trona can still really swing this with his Pulse Bomb and is still getting good damage down as Jasper gets the mech. Because of that, Raphael looking to close it down as they lose their other DPS. Libalent, they are at least moving the payload, but they're on the cusp of being stopped up again here if they're not careful.
They are definitely still moving up, and for DeToNator, they need to contest this sooner or later. Him going down, he had one of the early defensive ultimates. Now they're just going to rely on Nakyup, but actually, if they can just push Libalent Supreme out without using any ultimates, they're going to be even further ahead. Bexel does end up using his own Primal Rage, and Ellis just going to fall back.
It feels like Libalent aren't really reading the moment to retreat, and honestly, how many times are they going to end up in the same situation where Pepper and Darrington dive, while Selene, he's miles back from the center of the team, and even further away from Pepper and Darrington, the 2 people that could probably be ducking back to defend him. Honestly, Toronto's getting too much free reign on Libalent's backline.
And that's been happening all across Nepal as well, so this isn't anything new. The wall stick's not going to collect anybody as the barrier comes down, but Raphael wants another turn.
He absolutely does, and he's going to get it too. Darrington for good measure. Looking to get a little bit more. Doesn't quite get it, but they get other kills anyway. The rest of his team actually does some work for once. It's not just Raphael.
Economically, though, for LS, they are racking up a decent number of ultimates, but in terms of stabilization, didn't have a lot of time that they've burnt off the clock for LS.
Yeah.
So even if LS cap, now I'm expecting this to go into the overtime if LS even make it to the end of the map.
They're committing for this one, and once again, look, half of DeToNator is already behind them. It's a miracle they're able to get their healers into the fray sometimes, and a lot of that miracle is that transcendence there. I don't know how a robot does that, but he does. Hotate is indeed in, but he's not actually finding much. Yeah, really needs to go to the same lubricant shop as Raphael. But they're keeping the payload moving, they're keeping the pressure on. That's what really counts. And Ivar actually forced back, doesn't quite get demech though, that's big. Oh, Pepper misses the stick and loses his life. So unfortunate there, actually, that's a lie. He did demech Ivar at the last minute there. But the self-destruct from Jasper to make space might just be enough now, as they have a few more ultimates in the bank. But oh, Jasper, no, getting demeched. Good target selection there by Trona. And again, how is Trona just so unanswered? But unfortunately, stepping off the point is DeToNator. That's a mistake.
DeToNator, that should not have happened whatsoever. Now, twice over 2 maps, it's Libalent Supreme able to get a sneaky cap up from underneath them. And in fact, Ardiont even got a sneaky 2/3 on the Temple of Anubis. So for DeToNator, something's going on where their control of the actual objective itself, whether that be the payload or the cap, they're not paying attention, and it has been costing them games.
And I'll tell you what, it is the one place where their current play style of kind of wrapping around the other team and then pincering in doesn't work, because while you're doing that wrap around, the team is on the objective, you're trying to set up to attack them, and if you're meant to be defending that objective to stop a cap from going through, not being on it is just going to cost you out and out. So that's the one place where that doesn't work, but that does also mean that potentially DeToNator are a little one-dimensional if they kind of gave that up. And also, this means that there will be a time bank if DeToNator do cap, so now they have to cap.
And the thing for Libalent Supreme is that was going to be an overtime play. There's only about 20 seconds left to go. You have a scenario where DeToNator had enough plays that they could have stalled it out. More reinforcements coming back on through. The respawns advantage them, as you said, the ultimates. So absolutely play into the overtime. Most likely, the way it looked like Libalent Supreme were on the cusp of pushing it out anyway, but if they capped out into overtime, the time bank scenario at least would have been very different. But now, it's not going to be the case for DeToNator Korea, and they're not going to have that advantage going into their own time bank.
Unfortunately not. Let's see how Libalent play the defense though, because I will say, certainly we saw it yesterday against Talon on Control. They were very quick to step off the point and kind of give it up, and not even doing so with the idea of recontesting. But they haven't actually been making that same mistake today, I'll be completely frank with you. So I'm curious to see how well their defense is able to hold here.
Absolutely as well, and both teams now going to be running quite heavy dives, so expecting a lot of action very early on. Libalent Supreme need to not give up too much ground for DeToNator to work with. I think that's going to be quite important.
But they've already given up that ground as they're getting pincered into the side here. They're not putting response damage down onto anyone, and the moment they dive, all these DPS just turn around and they're like, okay, well, I guess I'll kill this isolated member now. You can't just huddle down. You do have to bite back, and they're completely and utterly failing at that.
This is still a very different playstyle to what DeToNator was showing yesterday. I think if you were researching DeToNator's performance yesterday, you saw a lot of soldier usage out of Raphael. This has been complete 180 of how DeToNator plays slow and steady, wins the race. Not this case. Now it's time for the rabbit to come out.
That's one analogy. That was a little bit of an overextension, unfortunately, by Bexel. So now Libalent do have a window, and they're going to be able to contest this bookshop, which is a bit of a windfall for them, actually.
It is, and it's a very important defensive location. DeToNator also had this when they were defending the streets as well. Toronto got that important 1v1 kill against Pepper. So now LS, Pepper looking for something on the back line. No pulse bomb though, so he's just going to have to... Speaking of pulse bomb, whoa.
Wow, that was a big one out of Trona, the only one who had it, and then Raphael opens up for the rest. The one thing I was going to say was Libalent on their push hit the ults to snowball, and DeToNator didn't really have any but the pulse bomb, but turns out pulse bomb is all they needed. Pepper is dead, indeed, gets ground, as it were. And now DeToNator back underway.
It's interesting because Pepper looked like he wanted to make the kind of play Toronto would usually make, which is right around the backside, try and pick out one of the supports. But hey, you can't do it Toronto because he's doing it on your team as well. It just gets a double kill with the pulse bomb. Suddenly you're behind, you can't react, you don't have a pulse bomb of your own, and your team just falls apart. Raphael with the Dragon Blade as well. We've already seen what the man can do with this.
I would be terrified if I was Libalent. Hotada does have his own though, so they have an opportunity to convert. Now Pepper is trying to do what Trona does to them. Yes, he gets him. That's what they needed to open it out. And the sound barrier isn't going to do too much here for DeToNator. The aggression out of Raphael is kind of getting answered, and he's now being forced back. That's very nice by Libalent. Hotada is actually going to commit his Dragon Blade here so they can help secure this fight out as Ivar uses the self-destruct. Excuse me. And suddenly Hotada too deep as Raphael just wraps back around and kills him. Libalent, they go aggressive to close out the fight, but they don't actually do so with enough cleanliness to secure it. And DeToNator, they just back up and then re-aggress when Libalent find themselves naked.
And this has been a very quick second phase, a very quick streets phase, and for Libalent Supreme already onto their last legs. They're going to go for the nice token defense here. Sound barrier used quite early. A Transcendence will be responded if they don't get what there it is.
Jasper already demagged, and Raphael following up on that as well. And the Transcendence out of him means honestly none of these Libalent members can get response kills. Trona is still unanswered. How often does this happen? You could stick on that man for an entire game and see him die twice, and it would still feel like a fluke. No one's actually going, guys, we need to deal with Trona.
And this feels a lot like DM playing in Team Ardiant as well. We saw the Ardiant versus DeToNator Korea game. It felt like DM was doing exactly this, and now Trona is showing that he can do it against Libalent Supreme. And Pepper, he's fallen behind.
He's absolutely fallen behind, and Pepper is a great player in his own right. He is actually connecting a lot of these, but yeah, that's the thing, Trona, again, how many times is he going to get onto Selena uncontested? How long will it take for Libalent to learn that Selena either needs to be protected or needs to take the risk of sitting closer to the team? But at last they get some return kills in, as Hotari goes on the attack, but they need to not overextend. They need to respect Raphael can still dice them up if they go too far, and they do.
That was a good response from Ellis because in sort of both ways, and this time Selene was able to defend himself, and don't forget, on I think it was specifically Nepal, Selene got himself a solo kill versus Trona, so sometimes those 1v1s do swing the Zenyatta's way, which is important for Alice, and then they also won that frontline battle. Now they're hitting ultimates, they should be able to hold.
Aggression from Hotari does pay off as he opens up on Knacked Up, and Raphael trying to do the same is going to find himself whacking away at a, I don't know, yeah, what would you just, I guess a glowing robot? Like, I don't know, what even is Transcendence?
It's so, you're so well oiled, you're just glowing. Different kind of oil.
You've been oiled, you've been like buffed, and you know, you're looking...
Baby oil.
You're looking great. Like, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger of robots.
Got the Glenn Wales and the Johnson & Johnson out, so.
I wonder what that would be called in that universe, but him getting picked up again is a good start for Libalent, and Pepper finally channeling his inner Trona, as it were, has the pulse bomb to commit as well. Not if you die to the Lucio, though. That's embarrassing. Hope nobody saw that. Raphael going down to the self-destruct, though, means this one can stay alive for Libalent if they can keep Hotari alive as well, because Darton is giving them the space to kind of retreat and lick their wounds if they want to then reaggress afterwards. They may not even need to reaggress. Oh dear. Bexel converting 2 on the back end of that is terrible for Libalent, and now Trona goes on the aggressive. How did Libalent not read that coming? He was the only member really left there.
And now finally the cart moves on. The good thing for LS was doing that entire time for a couple of minutes now. The cart just does not move. Throwing a pulse bomb to spawn, you're not going to get a kill with that. So here comes the cart, finally reaching the final moments. And for LS, Hotari switching on to Soldier as well. They've just got a pulse bomb to play with, and it might not be enough.
Yeah, and already Darton dead on the point. The Transcendence in for DeToNator is already good as they demech the Diva. They're just finding it all. Raphael
cleans up on everything.
Yeah, absolutely everything else. Now onto the Reaper, and like, I don't know, what product could Reaper use to be more efficient? Like, he eats bats.
He's eating LS right now because there's not enough members alive whatsoever. The one member with an ultimate's not even alive, and now the final tank just goes down. The mech melts as well, so Link's just going to have to dive onto this with Transcendence.
But
doesn't even make it on time.
Yeah, like he spent too long in the spawn, like buffing and polishing himself, like getting the baby oil on, and then he's like, all right, ready for Transcendence, and it was too late.
The final moments were very difficult. I think there was a bit of a middle section on that third cap where Alice had a decent defense. They didn't really, I would say, outright win any of the fights, but they held up the cart for long enough that they bled down the time, and that was extremely important for them. And then somewhere towards the end there, you had a massive string of kills from DeToNator Korea, and LS couldn't respond with anything. Suddenly the cart was knocking right on their door. Before they knew it, Raphael came up with the Reaper, completely demolishing everyone on the cart. Both your tanks went down within seconds, and it was all over.
Man, Reaper as well. That's we didn't actually get a chance to talk about that, but it's kind of nice to see the old Goth kid coming back out again. We were seeing him a little bit in that Sombra meta, but then kind of fell back out, and really the strength of that was he didn't get affected too much by the EMP, but now with the extra healing, I'm liking seeing him in.
I think the additional strength there is right in the final moments when just trying to get the card across the line, and you know the enemy is pretty much just trying to stall you out primarily with tanks. Maybe they bring out the Mei as well. Your best tool against that is actually to burst them down with Reaper, because it's not something that Genji does quite well. Leaving a few treats by the elevator. The next person
Ana's just gone batty there, just giving candy to no one.
Yeah, man. Well, the next person that comes out of the elevator is like, oh, what's this?
Like your senile grandmother is healing you. Like that's not a good feeling. No Goth boy coming out the gate this time, and remember kids, being Goth isn't about the clothes you wear or the music you listen to, it's about pillaging the Balkans on your way to sack Gaul. And speaking of pillaging, Libalent out the gate with not too much time to use here, but they are really trying to put on the pressure, converting onto Bexel, and unfortunately losing Jasper's mech is in a way worse than having someone die, but they get Ivar's mech as well. So they can go aggressive now as they close out on Ivar, getting him as well. This is a very commanding attack out of Libalent.
This has been an explosive start as well. Hotari definitely tearing up. DeToNator already going to have to back up. I don't think DeToNator can realistically come back onto this one without risking further deaths, without just feeding even additional ultimates. Trono's going to try anyway. He's going to pay for it with his life. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's really big as well, because DeToNator kind of forced that contest, and now they're kind of getting a little bit routed here. They're going to lose their opportunity to bookshot contest, and if they lose Ivar's mech, this would be terrible for them. In fact, that may just happen. Hotari is hot on his heels. Hotari on his heels, as it were. Keisuke just babysitting the old payload.
Most boring job in the world. Actually, if Trono...
This is watching grass grow.
The problem is, if Trono gets onto the card now, that's a bit of a problem. So allies do pull back. They do understand, look, we're going to focus on the card here. We can't get too ahead of ourselves, because if we get punished on that front line, if we overextend, it's all over. We're already into the overtime. DeToNator need to be reserved here. It's time to play a little bit slower, read the situation, and go for that one win, because one victory will conceal them this defense.
That's great. I was going to say they laid a trap, and they absolutely sprung it there. The pulse bomb to him to open it up means the rest actually just crumbled really quickly. Yeah. And for once, it's actually DeToNator not reading what Libalent are doing rather than the other way around. I think Raphael...
This is going to be a flank. He's hiding here so that he can flank out when the cart makes its final rotation around the subway section, and no one checks the subway, so that's extremely safe. Pepper's even going to go deeper into near the enemy spawn, and so for DeToNator, the same sort of scenario applies. You have to play a little bit patiently here, play for one single fight. The Dragon Blade isn't going to do enough, because if Celine sees it, he will Transcendence, and it won't do anything.
But he's been spotted by Jasper, and now Raphael trying to go in, and there should be the Transcendence out. Indeed, there it goes. Bexel getting picked by the self-destruct as well, and Hotari finding his counterpart with his own Dragon Blade. This is big for them. Already off to a good start in the fight. Trono gets one back, but it's not enough now as Hotari keeping on the pressure. Trono, he may just get picked off here at the end. That would be ideal for them, because that's the last member available to harass. They close out on Nakyup, and this should result in a cap for them. This is really good for Libalent.
Libalent is absolutely thriving here. Fantastic explosive start. They're just continuing in that snowball. When will it stop? When does the snowball end with its roll? And DeToNator are just struggling in this time back. They've played so controlled throughout the entire map, and then suddenly here they're falling apart at the worst possible time.
Yeah, Stagger Death, by the way, is my favorite metal band.
Is that a real thing?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Just sounds a lot like Stagger Death.
It's
like dinosaur metal. You've got Stagger Death. But that's a good convert from Ivar, actually, to respond to him going down. Libalent still have a lot of resources to use if they want to keep this fight going, but to be honest, DeToNator probably have more Pulse Bomb out as well. Does a lot of work just in terms of sheer damage. They don't actually convert any kills off it, and Hotari is swapped off. He might not be able to get back into this fight, though, and they don't have the same stall tools out of the tanks here. Bexel's still holding onto his Primal Rage as well, and this looks like the point where Libalent will finally be stopped up. But honestly, a ton of distance gained, and actually, despite having 2 minutes 45, DeToNator really had their work cut out for them.
And I think even with 2 minutes 45, you can't expect to roll on through that quickly. Maybe you can if the defense just barely even exists. If you do, essentially what Ellie said to DeToNator on that first cap, which is where I think they got the majority of the snowball rolling, because that first cap was so explosive for them, and DeToNator had probably the worst defense I've ever seen out of them on that particular section. I mean, that was just unexpected. They had a much better run on their initial defense. To see them get blown up like that now, especially in time bank, this hurts them a lot more than it would have hurt them on the regular defense.
Yeah, that's completely true, and that's the thing, right? That 2 minutes 45, I mean, it's one thing, sure, but once you're in overtime, you only need to lose one fight, and it's not hard to run out 2 minutes 45 of clock and then just win one fight. So the fact that Libalent were able to win several fights and DeToNator didn't stop them up, I mean, after capping, they only had about 10 seconds before they were into the overtime. So really, all of that happened in overtime, and DeToNator failed at every opportunity they have. Libalent only need to succeed at one.
And, you know, you said many times during the regular phase of the King's Row, when will Trono get answered? He got answered at the worst possible time for DeToNator, because after losing the first cap, DeToNator decided to come back in anyway. Trono went in there. Another player whose name I forgot also went in there. Both of them got killed. DeToNator got routed out during the streets phase, losing additional members, and it was just it was just tragedy after tragedy for them. Now they've got to clean themselves up.
Yeah, they need to get very aggressive very quickly here, but they need to be careful how they do it, actually. Darrington going in very aggressively needs to be careful to not lose his life here, as they're trying to convert. Nakyup does get one through, but the pressure is coming out from Libalent. They're struggling to close it out, though. Raphael going off, and DeToNator looking to get this first cap in similarly spectacular fashion into Libalent.
Certainly, and I don't think Ellis are going to make the same mistake where they're going to try and contest when they don't need to, or rather, make a very risky play. Well adjusted, I'd say, for DeToNator. Nakyup picking up the first kills against Darrington definitely sets them up, because as soon as the front line for Libalent Supreme goes down, their ability to sort of transfer the kills over really diminishes when you got 2 tanks to a life for DeToNator, despite the fact that him went down.
They do get a bookshop contest, which is good for them, though, and not recontesting the whole point itself is good. There we go. There's the answer to Trono, but losing Darrington in the retreat is very bad news, and Hotade as well. They actually had the opportunity to contest.
Both tanks down.
They didn't. They tried to back off after getting in position and just left their rear completely exposed. DeToNator pounce, and Libalent suffer for it.
And DeToNator, you have to use this opportunity to just build ultimates. I don't really agree with the self-destruct here. I know he wants to reset the mech, but take it on the chin, man. Go back to the respawn room, whatever it is, because you need ultimates. You need to snowball with ultimates. That's how Libalent Supreme got their distance. If you want the same distance, you also need that behind yourself.
Yeah, and the thing is, winning a fight isn't actually necessary here. They just need to stall down the clock. They just need to waste DeToNator's time, but they're not even contesting the payload. Wow, that's a good opener. This is a great way to waste time as they pick out Nakyup as well. They opt to commit for the fight, but I'd actually like to see them hold on to ultimates. Yeah, DeToNator had the reset. They've already stopped up the carts. They should hold on to ultimates here, Libalent. That is indeed what they do. And now, if they can run down a little bit more clock, they will get themselves to that point where they only need to win one fight.
Trono goes down. That's
huge.
Terrible, because they don't have time to wait. They don't have time to really get and gather these 6 members again. We're under 1 minute already. We're about to head into the overtime. Likely LS will force the overtime before the cap on the second point even goes over, which means even if DeToNator cap pushing through in the overtime in the final section of the map, they could just lose it right then.
Ivar had to reset his ult charge as well, so they're slightly behind in ultimates here, Libalent, but like I said, only need to win 1 fight. There's a lot of payload distance here. They can just draw some out for this one, and already that is what has happened. They've got Hymns, Transcendence, had to commit their own, but Jasper in with the self-destruct. This is a valuable tool for them. They actually decide they want to commit to this one as Hotade goes aggressive, and he's making it work. Raphael as well goes down. That's so big. He had just Dragon Bladed as well, and Hotade doesn't even need to get any more. Happily puts away the sword, hangs up the shoes as it were, and DeToNator get absolutely demolished on the payload itself. Libalent playing the overtime far better than their Korean counterparts, and are going to even up the score.
1 for 1. We're going to match on our hands right off Nepal altogether. That was a 3-0 sweep, but Libalent come back and strike fair into DeToNator Korea. They say, look, control's over. We're not going back to that for the rest of the evening. Assault's going to be next, and you better pick something that's good for you, because we're here to play.
And the reality is, both teams actually struggled at the first point in defense. And what happened there? DeToNator Korea played the main phase better on the defense. I would even say the cap only went over because they made a mistake. They really were on the cusp of stopping the cap from going altogether. But they completely messed up the time bank. I haven't seen a team play it that poorly in a very, very long time.
I don't know. Did you see the blank versus Flash Wars final in the Barney?
All of that control and calculation, though, just kind of went out the window, and they do have a capacity for patience. Holding off and playing for the bookshop would have been exactly that, and maybe we would have had a very different series on our hands there, but at the end of the day, they were in time bank. Libalent played it better, and it was a deserved win because of it.
I definitely didn't drop the ball in the time bank. It's the worst place to drop the ball. You prefer to have some worse moments in the regular gameplay and then make it to time bank. Still, maybe you drag your feet over the line.
That's what Libalent did.
Bank, which is exactly like you said. And then when you actually get to the time bank, you outperform the other team, or the other team really slips up. Suddenly you capitalize, and let's really consider how Libalent did that, because when you look at their regular play, they capped on through with 20-something seconds remaining, when realistically they should have only capped on through, if at all, in the overtime. But came down to DeToNator slipping up, allowing the cap on through, not contesting the card, and then they had a much better regular run of Kings Row. That was expected. Going into the time bank, it all fell apart, and everything added up, all the small things that really happened, that really went wrong for DeToNator Korea, that added up to one big loss.
Now, the one thing that really happened there actually is the big defining difference ultimately with the way the game actually went is Libalent ended up being the only team to have a good defense on Streets phase. They had a bad one, then a good one. DeToNator had two bad ones. Their good defense was on third point, on the initial run. And honestly, you're rarely going to get there in time bank anyway. And that is, of course, where they stocked it up in time bank. But that's the only good place you can defend. Then you're going to find yourself losing a lot of time bank. So that's something DeToNator are really going to have to patch up. But for now, score very much even. And like you said, we've definitely got a series on our hands.
I think DeToNator have to go away for a little bit and really reconsider what they're going to do onto the third map, and also find out exactly what went wrong on King's Row and patch that up in time if they want to make it to Season 2. We're guaranteed to go to a map for the next map pick. Will, of course, go to DeToNator Korea, who dropped King's Row. That's all going to happen after this break. Welcome back to the OPC Season 2 qualifiers between Libalent Supreme and DeToNator Korea. 1-for-1 so far is the scoreline. The winner of this evening will go on to play in Season 2 of OPC. The next map is already chosen by DeToNator Korea. It is Hanamura.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, given what we were saying earlier in the night about the habit of Japanese teams and going to Hanamura, but this is DeToNator, formerly a Japanese teams, but now a Korean team, but playing against a Japanese team, so who even knows? Libalent have actually picked this map, though, earlier in this specific part of the tournament as well. Not sure what happened exactly on the online stage. Odds are they picked it as well, so this is interesting. It's obviously a map that actually both teams are comfortable on, and Libalent did beat Talon on this map. In fact, this is the map on which they knocked out Talon, had a very good performance on it as well. So this to me is big confidence out of DeToNator Korea rather, to say, yes, we saw you do that, we know how good you are, we still think we're better.
And I would say so. I think DeToNator Korea are a controlled enough team that, all things considered, when we look at King's Row, it was a good series right up until the time bank, and if DeToNator Korea can capitalize on the good moments in that map and fix what really went wrong with the time bank, this could be a much more clean map for them than it should have been.
Absolutely, the way that could go. That being said, Libalent towards the end of King's Row do seem to have really started to deal with what DeToNator Korea are doing with the aggressive way that they're playing. They're reacting to players like Trona much better now. And it's starting to really pay off for them. And I expect it to get cleaner as it goes on. Maybe that can really tip the balance in their favor. Hard to say. And honestly, the series is even for a reason.
I would say so as well. I think Libalent have absolutely caught up, or maybe caught up isn't the right way to put it, but caught on to DeToNator Korea would definitely be a little bit more accurate.
Obese Australian just magically transform into a retired Egyptian woman?
No, because she's not retired. That's the,
I guess she's come out of retirement. There you go. So that didn't. That's not what happened.
No,
do not be fooled. That was some David Copperfield.
Don't read into the hype. Don't believe everything you see on the internet, kids.
Yeah, don't believe everything you see on the Overwatch.
I don't know, it's both teams, still playing heavy dive. Tracer Genji evening. We've seen a little bit of Soldier on this evening, but it just seems like flavor of the evening for both.
Flavor of the evening. Tracer Genji time. And already Pepper in behind, but Celine getting picked means Libalent probably can't capitalize on that too much. They're going to try and go anyway. They would have to convert some kills pretty quickly. Don't want to overextend without that healer. And they are just going to back off instead.
So pretty smart, I guess. I don't think you should be playing
Pepper a bit deep.
in a disadvantaged situation. Certainly not. You don't want to give away too much. You didn't know this earlier on. You don't want them to snowball out of control in the defense. Just allow yourself a bit of time. They do lose a roughly 30 or so seconds, so you have to consider that also.
Well, in any case, again trying to go aggressive, but again losing a healer. This time a good response kill, but able to keep Pepper alive is very important for them. But demecking Jasper, it's just this really great follow-up whenever they start to retreat. But honestly, DeToNator this time having it matched for them. So Libalent, they have an opportunity to keep up the aggression, and Ivar going down. That is very good for them. Looking to pick off someone like him. Indeed, it is going to be what happens. It's Hotari going aggressive. Doesn't have much health, but unless Trona pulls out a crazy play here, this has already swung the way of Libalent. Trona spending a bit too much time licking his wounds. Comes back to find his entire team dead.
And DeToNator now going to just have to set up for cap number 2. This is unfortunately already capped on over. This is kind of a done deal for Libalent Supreme now pushing on through. The good news for DeToNator is Dragon Blade is gone. That would have been one of the snowball tools for LS. They're not going to have that. In fact, they're going to have to take the time a little bit. Hotari even saying, we're going to play for setup here. This is a good time to swap because the Dragon Blade was used. And he said, I'm not going to lose anything anyway, so why not?
And that being said, look, between the sound barrier and Primal Rage, it's not huge snowball tools, but they could at the very least force some time out of DeToNator. Get a third, maybe. They need to react to Raphael, though.
I'd say so as well.
Speaking of get a third,
they've given DeToNator a decent amount of time to get their own ultimates up, so Libalent Supreme, despite winning, they're actually economically behind.
Yeah, this is also, by the way, Pepper diving straight for the point, and now Raphael getting very well reacted to as they kind of had to wheel back around to address what was going on the point itself. Now, Raphael may not be able to scrape out with this with his life. Hotade trying to stay alive, will do so, but Pepper not quite so lucky. They haven't actually got any kills in response either, so good job kind of trading blow for blow and very nearly had DeToNator up on the ropes there, but DeToNator able to kind of rally and swing back.
That was actually not a bad fight for Alice, all things considered, because they didn't really have to use any ultimates there. They got away quite cheaply in terms of what DeToNator used instead on that defense. They baited out all those defensive ultimates, and now when Alice go in again, Hotade is going to be set up with the Tech Visor. Nanovisor probably in the books as well as Celine has picked up his ultimate, so now Alice are looking like they're ready to deal with a lot of what DeToNator has to offer.
First of all, Nano boost onto Hotade so that they can counter out this dive, and now he opens up with the Attack Visor, but way too early. Ivar still in his face is going to absorb most of that. Pepper, however, opening up the backline with that Pulse Bomb, and now I bet you wish you had a Tactical Visor available. Darrington getting killed as well by Bexel is terrible for Libalent, and now having committed a ton of their resources, they've actually not converted the kills. Now Trona is going to be dealing with so many people on the backside here, not going to be able to successfully retreat most of Libalent. A few will, which is good for them, but they use so much there and got nothing for it.
And DeToNator well defended. I mean, Ivar really off the back of Matrix, just completely blocked out two ultimates from Alice, so they needed to have an alternate solution. Then they needed to be able to knock out Ivar or really attempt to address the back line while Ivar was, I would say, distracted at least by Hotade, but Alice couldn't really win on either fronts, not in the soldier front and not on the back line either.
And Hotade didn't have to ult. Like, he had the nano boost, and he could have just sat there with that to pressure all those members off the high ground, and then Ivar would have eventually had to drop down later, and then use the Tactical Visor. Like, you don't have to use that combo. You can split it on out, but Trona going down at the top, this is a much better opening for Libalent Supreme. Now, Raphael getting forced out as well. This is very good with Bexel out of the picture. Transcendence can't save him. They go back in with the re-engage with this just the blade, the Dragon Blade in fact, and they kind of keep this one on lockdown for now. Hotade does go down, but they're putting a nano boost on Pepper of all people. Actually, they really want to secure this one hard and fast, and I certainly do not blame them as him picked again, closing out on Ivar. Now self-destruct is good to catch Darrington, so that might actually be enough to stop up this third, but maybe not with Bexel getting picked. Trona still unanswered though. Oh, they need to deal with that. Oh, losers. Stopped up mid-barrier. That's really big. Trona really trying to keep this one alive now for his team. He's actually stopped the third from going over, and they start to convert. They catch out Selene, and Libalent Supreme not killing Trona has once again cost them.
And he didn't even need to use Pulse Bomb there, and Libalent Supreme had such a great one. They knocked out Nakib's sound barrier, and actually kind of helps DeToNator now because they have that sound barrier for the next fight, so Nakib saving it kind of unintentionally even. DeToNator set themselves up once again in terms of ultimate economy, and Alice just falling a little bit further behind. They will get their Nano Visor combo in some due time, but they need to work for this now. They're going to have a slow setup where they maybe need to beat some of the, or rather bait some of these ultimates out of DeToNator career before they can really go in.
And sometimes it actually just seems they're so unaware of the positioning of, that they don't realize someone's shooting them from behind, already Pepper getting picked out. It's like trying to pump shots into the back of them, and they're not like, they're standing there like, oh, who's that? What's going on here? They're just not addressing it. They seem unaware. I don't know.
Alice are about the stage now where they have waited for a little bit of time, got a bit of damage in, and that's going to allow Hotade to get his Tech Visor much needed. They have to figure out a way to get past Ivar. Certainly they're going to have to play into double defensive ultimates as well, so DeToNator are well set up for this next defense, and with only 2 minutes remaining, I don't know how many dry pushes Alice can afford.
And already getting Pepper and Darrington so low here. Selene having to really work overtime. Pepper again may just go down anyways. Raphael looking to get the wraparound. This could be devastating as they commit the nano boost, and the blade. Ooh, right into said visor. And they unfortunately have more return kills anyway, as the visor doesn't find anything. Yeah, Bexel will at least go down, but honestly, that's probably not enough because too many members of Libalent had also died. And it's just so rough. They're not getting anything convincing enough to even get so much as a third.
Well, actually, for Alice, they used 2 ultimates of their own, and they got 2 ultimates out of DeToNator, so still in a very even position. That probably still favors DeToNator a little bit more than it does LS, but with Bexel kind of overcommitting there, feeding himself in death, it just kind of small things are working out for Alice, but not in a way where they're getting progress onto the actual cap itself, which is the biggest problem.
Oh, Pepper
and that's another problem.
That is about as bad.
Spicy Pepper.
Yeah. Missed the stick, died to his own bomb. That's terrible. And honestly, Libalent just had to take this one on the chin now.
And,
losing an ultimate for nothing, less than nothing actually. You killed yourself, and it is probably the worst way to go down with now only 1 minute remaining on that timer. LS probably going to get a little bit, I'd say, near desperation now because they're still playing into at least one defensive ultimate. That's going to be a lot to work through.
It just looks really sloppy out of them, I'm going to be honest. It looks really unclean.
Pepper
I mean,
again,
especially
Pepper
compared to
again.
yesterday, yeah, once again. And wow, Raphael, 3K. Finally goes down to Daratan, but it is just far too late for Libalent. They need to actually have Jasper die here because they don't have much time. He's going to be able to take a dive at least, but oh, this is rough. They're going to have to book it to the point now.
Takes the long road back to the respawn room, and LS, you're absolutely right. Book it to the point sounds pretty accurate. Still sitting on 3 ultimates, so that's kind of good, but they haven't gotten anything else out of DeToNator. They were still in the same situation realistically that they were in before, and that didn't work out for them last time. I don't see it really working out for them this time either.
Well, we have seen miracles happen at this particular kind of moment though, so let's see how they execute. Sometimes when the pressure is there, that's when you really perform, but already DeToNator with the tools, it forces out the sound barriers. They go aggressive with the Transcendence. Ivar doesn't find much with his self-destructing Jasper Civil zoning, but he loses his mech instantly actually to Ivar self-destruct. Ivar may be demech'd here, but it might not be worth it as Raphael just opens up and Ivar doesn't even lose the mech. Libalent, no real follow-up, no real reaction to what DeToNator are doing. They're not actually playing to their opponents, they're trying to play their own game, and it is constantly fading because funnily enough, there is a team trying to stop you from doing that. That team is DeToNator, and they've done that successfully. No second cap for Libalent, not even so much as a third, and now the ball is in DeToNator's end of the very, I don't know. I was going to try and describe the court, but it's in their end of the court. I don't know, what could make a court better? Well-groomed?
Is a slippery court good or bad? It's kind of bad for everyone, I think.
Yeah, I was
no
thinking
one wants
like
to play on a slippery court.
My first thought was like well waxed. I think like it depends on the court as well. Like I think for like I don't know badminton or like an indoor that could be good, but
tell you what, it's like an asphalt court, right? So if you fall over, it really hurts.
Yeah, asphalt court or clay. Clay would be rough because it's really hard. I think it's harder than asphalt.
Never played on a clay court. I hope I never do as well. And
I just don't play tennis. I mean, it's just not really a fact. It's not like I hope I don't play on a clay court. It's like I know I won't. I'm never going to be in a situation where I'm forced to play on a clay court.
Well, let's think about this for a second because DeToNator Korea, they had a very uneventful kind of first cap. The cap A just kind of went over. Without too much effort from the Libalent Supreme side, but as soon as we got to that second cap, it was just a different kind of DeToNator Korea team, and for much of that defense, the ultimate economy says a lot. I talk about the ultimate economy because it really tells you the story of the pacing and the tempo of the game, where defensively, if the defense is never a disadvantage in terms of ultimates, the worst that Korea were having was a neutral situation where both teams were just even, and that says a lot about how far behind Supreme were across the entire event of trying to attack onto that second cap. They struggled that much.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, the second point was kind of uneventful for DeToNator Korea in a different kind of way because they won the first fight, and every other fight was the exact same fight after that. Like, Libalent Supreme didn't change anything, so DeToNator didn't actually have to change anything either. They were just happy to keep playing their game and winning the fight, and Libalent had to react. They failed to, but now we'll see if DeToNator can have the same kind of success on the attack.
And this looks a lot more like your traditional OPC because you finally get the Torbjorn back out on Hanamura, especially with the Tracer Soldier as well. This is, if you're thinking OPC, this is exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, traditional is one way to put it. Libalent are like, no, we deserve it, but losing Selene would suggest otherwise. Good trade back, but they pick Hotate as well, so this is still very doable for DeToNator. They need to have a few more members die if this is going to be good for Libalent, and picking off Kasuke, well, that makes it good for DeToNator. Trona forced out, but he stays alive, crucially. They actually haven't figured out where the turret is, but at this point it probably doesn't matter.
I would say so as well. This is already looking pretty poor for Libalent Supreme.
Kisuke's changed off tall.
Usually Trona has been the one to open up the back line, and it just doesn't disappoint. Selene has, it's either him or Keisuke, and just Trona has a field day with both the supports every single time.
Well, first point cap over. Now, DeToNator actually have some snowball tools in the form of the Pulse Bomb, and they will have the Primal Rage available in a few moments here. There isn't much out of Libalent to react, so they could very much get themselves a third here.
And because, because changing off the Torbjorn onto the Zenyatta as well for Keisuke means no ultimate charge and immediately goes down, so that's...
They do lose him. That's crucial. Pulse Bomb does actually connect, though, despite the Matrix. It just went down for that brief moment. But there have been some response skills here. This isn't going to be easy breezy for DeToNator, and in fact, the ultimate out of Daratan will buy a lot of time for this this squad. So DeToNator may actually just want to go ahead and back up. And Bexel committing his ultimates as well means Libalent have held on what was going to be the hardest push to hold for.
And killing DeToNator's supports is the most important part about neutralizing their attack, because for attackers, for them to actually cap on through, they need to have the sustainability. Losing both their supports right off the top of the bat, that's going to just completely stop that push right at the top.
Love to see now how DeToNator fare further forward. Picking off Pepper is a great way to start. And that was really the only ultimate Libalent had to leverage either. If Hotate goes down, he has stayed alive and now committing the... actually doesn't even need to commit the tech visor. Finally does after that, so never mind all that. But with the nano boost on, honestly, DeToNator can't actually really fight that one. Nearly got that third. They did a good job of stopping Libalent from getting to the point, but not quite a good enough one. Honestly, you're never going to hold up the whole 6 members as just one guy.
That would certainly be poetic justice if DeToNator were the ones to actually sneak out a cap from another team. It's just they've been falling prey to that.
Poetic justice, but against the wrong team.
Yeah, right. It's
like someone robs you, so you go and rob someone else, and you're like, take that. How does it feel? And they're like, oh, not very good.
I don't like it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't really call that poetic justice. I would call that projecting. That would be not doing unto others what you want done to yourself, but DeToNator doing unto Libalent what was not done to them, and that is delivering deaths, trying to getting 3. They are able to back away from the self-destruct. It doesn't find enough, and Ivar actually picking up Jasper in that as well. Is so huge, nearly capped and almost guaranteed to go over. Good stall by Keisuke and Celine out on the main to try and continue the stall. Yeah, still getting kills through as well, DeToNator. Honestly, the response is just not good enough here from Libalent Supreme. Ultimate out from Dorado to buy him some time, and like I said, Celine on the Mei to stall up, but they've given away the win condition of actually winning the fight by picking that Mei out, and they are not going to be able to secure this one out by the looks of things unless something crazy comes out of Keisuke or Pepper here, maybe even Hotate.
Raphael going down though, so I mean, they are getting these trades, and as long as they get
but now kills, trying to re-enter,
they might be able to do this.
Oh dear, good recall, and actually they killed Trono who hadn't committed the ult, so just barely able to do it. That was about as down to the wire as it could get.
Just finally getting the kills in the back line, and the problem now for LS is because they changed up most of these heroes to really do this, now they're going back on. Keisuke and Celine both lose their ultimate, so LS, despite holding out, they're going to need to repeat that defense 4 minutes, so at least another 3, 4, absolutely 4 more defenses to actually do it. DeToNator, meanwhile, are charging up the ultimates. Raphael now back onto the Soldier as he was playing yesterday for LS, still vastly behind in terms of economy.
And it's getting closer and closer each time they push as well. Already big on the aggression here as they try and catch in Dorado or Jasper. They'd be happy with either, but Beck still going down. Hotate picking that one out means that DeToNator may just have to back up, take this one on the chin. Ivar losing the mech as well. So yeah, DeToNator this time very successfully repelled. No response kills.
That's a good buy wave if you were wondering as well from Ivar.
Oh wow.
So back to the respawn room, and oh wow sounds about right. DeToNator are getting repelled, and this is a bit of a concern. DeToNator have been ahead in a variety of different situations. Big Soul going down so early though, that's a bit of a problem because LS shouldn't be able to get these early pickouts into DeToNator because, you know, DeToNator are just, they don't need to overextend, they don't need to, you know, play into these situations where a player should be going down.
Saving grace for them was Jasper was DMX, so he swapped off and back on, so he's reset his ultimate charge. The DeToNator still have a lot to go on, but not if Nakip goes down here. That is a good open up by Pepper. Trona try to one-man army. Just hold on a second now.
This is playable.
Yeah, Libalent have to react. Hold on, where are Libalent? Ooh, gunning it for the point, but DeToNator doing the same. And this is really rough for them actually, because Raphael is up on the top side here on this high ground. Hotate needs to get a lot of work done with his own visor, but oh, where have we seen this before? He's just getting completely blocked up by Ivar. Pulse Bomb is good, but it maybe didn't come through early enough. They're finally starting to get some response kills thanks to Pepper, but they lose Hotate. Dorado needs to stall for his entire team, and Keisuke is already back onto the Mei to stall out for the rest, but it might not be enough. No one can even contest Raphael, let alone kill the members on the point itself, and DeToNator cap it through. Now the scoreline 2-1.
And I gotta say, that was not an easy cap on through for DeToNator because, you know, so many times Elias just held out in situations when realistically they shouldn't have been able to. They swapped onto Mei in a very daring moment. They swapped onto the Sombra as well, and they got the pickouts that started with killing Trona, and it usually that is how you stop up DeToNator career for the most part. Trona is a really huge factor for the team, and it's just interesting that as soon as he goes down, the rest of DeToNator career on that specific push just couldn't hold out.
That was honestly rough for Libalent from start to finish, even their own attack. It was like they were just throwing themselves in a brick wall, and I'll be honest, they weren't even throwing themselves in different ways. They didn't try anything remotely different in how they were pushing. They weren't learning, adapting, reacting, and that is always, always, always going to lose you a game. You are not going to magically have it work this time around. That is just not how Overwatch works. And on the flip side of that, DeToNator were constantly adapting and reacting and changing things, and slowly but surely cracked Libalent, got closer and closer each time, with one brief exception where I believe it was Bexel lost his life before the fight had even broken out, but that was the one exception. As it stands, I thought Libalent had really started to work out what DeToNator.KR were doing, but it's like they forgot it altogether there. All the lessons from King's Row were left behind.
And I think they were still able to get those early pick-on-throughs, which is a bit of a shame for DeToNator because they, shouldn't be in those situations where they can lose. Remember, Bexel dying, that was the one you pointed out, but straight afterwards, the next fight, Nakyub died right at the start. The difference was DeToNator were able to get a trade back, and suddenly they were able to get a second trade back, and that's when the situation became far more playable for them, and they were able to get themselves ahead on that particular push. But every other time, just seemed like they were getting caught out in sort of weird scenarios before anything had even happened.
Yeah, and that was rough for them. But once again, I can't help but go back to the fact that the difference is they did actually learn and adapt. Look, it was still very, very rough, and it was, tighter and tighter each time. Look, maybe they wouldn't have got a full cap through if that was what was necessary, but they only needed to get a third, and they did exactly that. It was the slight difference between, losing 2 and killing 1, and then losing 1 and killing 2 was what made the difference in the end. Sure, they still lost the 1 at the start, and they were doing that consistently. You're quite right, but it still wasn't like Libalent were particularly changing anything either. Everyone they did hold did feel like a just barely, until it was then a not at all.
Well, change, react, and adapt might just be on the cards for Libalent Supreme if they want to keep this series alive with DeToNator.KR now onto match point. They're so close into qualifying into Season 2. We'll have to find out what happens in map number 4 right after this break. Welcome back again to the OPC Season 2 qualifiers with Libalent Supreme taking on DeToNator.KR. We're about to head into map number 4. 2-1 is the scoreline in favor of DeToNator, and they are on match point.
Exactly, taking them on for what could be the last time here. It is Libalent's pick. They're opting to go to Dorado here, their pick, of course, because they lost. Now, in all fairness, last time it was their pick, they did actually win. That was on King's Row. It's a little bit of a tricky one, though, because they got an opportunity to win because DeToNator.KR made a big mistake in letting the cap on the last point go through. That's what pushed it to time bank ultimately. But then they actually capitalized enough to win outright. Maybe Dorado goes a similar way. I don't know. Maybe that is actually a chronic weakness of DeToNator.KR and that they can't actually stop up those mobile attacks.
It might be the case. I think, when we look at the way Control works and the way Assault works, the two things those maps have in common, I would say, is much more static in terms of where the fights take place, much more static in terms of, where the objectives are as well. So when we go into something a little bit more fluid and a little bit more mobile, you might be onto something with that.
Oh, might I? We'll have to see. We'll have to see if this is a good lead or if the case is going cold. I don't know. I couldn't really pull the metaphor out of that one. But in any case, Dorado looks pretty. I like it.
It's always nighttime, except when you're playing Castillo, which is, what is that, in the afternoon or sometime in the day?
Yeah. I can only assume that it's like off in the distance as well, because like you sort of see out across the bay on both Dorado and Castillo, so I don't know, maybe you can kind of see one from the other. I don't know. I want to find that out now.
Someone do the research. Someone's got to do the maths.
I haven't played threes for a while. They're good fun.
Yeah, pick up your free loot box.
And be on your merry way.
Ready for combat.
Pretty much. Well, Libalent Supreme now. Tournament life. In fact,
I am ready to roll.
They don't have time for 3v3.
They don't have time. 3v3 might be what they'll have to play after this if they don't go through to Season 2.
They're split into 2 3v3 squads.
In any case, the tryouts.
In any case, yeah, Libalent Supreme, like we said, last chance to even up the score and keep their hopes alive. They would still need to win another one after that. Would be going back to hybrid, but yeah, this is very, very spicy out of DeToNator. Going to go for a wraparound here to try and cut off Libalent as they set up, but this could just as easily go pear-shaped. DeToNator, that is indeed what happens as him gets reacted to. And sure, Keisuke is dead, but Raphael is sure to go down here. There we go. Hotade securing that one out. Actually looked like Darrington was going to have it, and Hotade getting even more off the back of that. Finally goes down to Trona, but their respawns are closer anyway. The payload will get in the way, and there's, I mean, it was more risky than was absolutely necessary out of DeToNator, to be honest.
I think 2 for 2 is unfortunately not a good enough trade for the defensive team. As soon as you see the attackers go back into spawn, that's when you can't really go aggressive anymore. You can't do any damage while they are in the spawn. You just have to back out Trona. What can he get done on the back line though? Because he has been a menace on the back line for a lot of this entire series.
But once again, we're actually now seeing what they were doing on King's Row here, Libalent. They are actually learning and adapting and reacting to what Trona has been doing. He does it the pulse bomb, but he still needs to actually stick it. Meanwhile, Libalent are just trying to go in the front door in what is currently a 6 versus 5, and it's kind of working out for them because until Trona regroups with his team, Raphael as well, actually Libalent are fighting in a numerical advantage.
Him's already gone down quite early. Transcendence coming out for LS means, you know, this is just now too hard for DeToNator to try and break on through in terms of damage.
Sound barrier just kind of does nothing. Nakip goes down anyway, and they need to commit ultimates out of Bexel here if they want to keep stalling, and they do, but Raphael's dead, so who is Bexel even stalling for? Sure, he got the kill onto Celine, but I'm going to go ahead and call that tunnel vision. Libalent have this one underway, and DeToNator even committing ultimates they didn't need to, just gives more charge over to Libalent, who really didn't even have to commit ultimates there themselves aside from the Transcendence and Primal Rage. This is really good for them.
Trona's still trying to just keep this one alive for the time being. Self-destruct even being committed out just to try and buy a little bit of time on top of that.
It gets Darrington, but again, they're actually at an ult disadvantage. I mean, sure, they're going to draw more ults out of Libalent. I can understand that, but again, they're using their own anyway. Hotade going off, whereas Raphael goes down with his Dragon Blade committed, and they still get more ult charge off the back of it anyway. So they don't have the same ultimate advantage, but they've got even more momentum now and even more opportunity to get ults back up.
Now, certainly they've been playing pretty dry. The highest ultimate charge right now is 34, whereas when you look on the DeToNator side, they've already got 2 up. They have certainly got a bit of an advantage moving into this next section. Pepper's got to get a really good flank if he wants to get anything done. So for DeToNator, I think getting this high ground and securing it, they should be able to do that.
Speaking of getting the high ground, Libalent's actually got it with Celine up here as they're securing this dive out. Raphael down. That is a decent pulse bomb from Trona, but it may just not be enough as Hotade, if he's able to stay alive here. Indeed he is. That is good news for them, and Bexel getting pressured now. Forces the Transcendence out of him, and actually Libalent should be happy with that. They need to not commit ults here. Take this one on the chin for a moment. They've drawn everything out of DeToNator and built up their own ult charge.
Unfortunately for LS, they're already still just hanging around this card, and DeToNator are going to back out themselves, picking up a couple of kills, resetting the entire ult economy for both teams now. So for LS, this is actually a pretty decent scenario for them to play into. They didn't lose too much in that aggressive play from DeToNator, but DeToNator do reset and stabilize in terms of pacing, which is important for them to get a good defensive position.
Absolutely the case, but Raphael could open up on Celine, means they're not really going to be able to get themselves underway, and Keisuke going down. They finally trade back onto Raphael, but it's a bit too late. And Hotade getting followed up on as well. Bexel not giving that man a break. And actually the entirety of Libalent is getting routed here. DeToNator going on the aggressive to close this one out. That was all just off an early pick on Celine because Raphael dove with confidence. Libalent suddenly then just not reacting now.
Sneaky 1v1. Don't expect another Tracer to be hiding behind there. And, you know, for LS, that was unfortunately quite poor because for DeToNator, they just found another situation to really dive in. Like you said, Celine was definitely the first target, and Alice had no response. They had ultimates, but they couldn't use anything to get in. Now Jasper going down early. Darrington might just follow, and Alice got to reset again.
Hadn't actually got back into his mech, was why it's really rough. And he went, look, I'm close enough, I might as well. They have a good rack of ultimates up now, though, but they need to draw some out of DeToNator. Effectively, this is an even fight.
It is a very even fight, but it's much better for DeToNator. They're much closer to getting that last ultimate up. And as a defensive team, you're on the offense. You need to be the kind of one drawing these ultimates out. For the DeToNator, they're the ones quite set up here, and Alice have to make the move.
And here they go. Keisuke getting aggressed upon, doesn't have that ultimate available, and just honestly caught out in the open. I'm not sure what he was doing there, kind of walking towards the payload on his own. The team wasn't really in for that. Now Celine has to Transcendence to avoid the same fate. Good pick onto him, though, gives them options. And Hotade and Raphael both opening up, but Raphael making work happen where Hotade did not, and Hotade as well getting picked by Bexel. Darrington committing this ultimate may not actually do all that much because Raphael is just constantly giving him the slip here, and he's just used up an ultimate and a ton of health bar for really not all that much. Libalent are keeping the payload moving now, though, as DeToNator a little bit low to keep contesting, but that was about as good as it gets in terms of running down the clock and keeping ultimates.
Didn't need to back off and regroup with their members. They have a Transcendent still to play with, so I think there's still advantage going to this next fight, specifically because Dorado can still actually land a pulse bomb. Now they're actually going to go in, and this should be a much more favored fight than LS can afford.
Ultimate out of Jasper, though, creates some space, but it's not space they do much with, aside from picking Ivar's mech. Losing Hotade early, and Nez trying to converting, still hasn't used the pulse bomb, still doesn't really need to. And now these return kills from Libalent, they don't really mean anything because their DPS is dead.
Pixie getting a lot of kills on the back
Wow.
end as well. DeToNator got that quite cheaply. They don't have to use much at all. This little nice stagger at the end is going to really allow them to bleed down the timer as we're already under 1 minute. The 50-second mark. Cart's quite close to the second cap, but this is also a really difficult situation for the attackers to play in, considering the closer you get into the overtime mark, the further away your respawn distance is to the actual cart. So it's a really bad place to be when you approach the overtime.
The thing is, Libalent set themselves up well with the self-destruct. It was a really great tool for them to have. But as DeToNator abandoned the space, so did Libalent. Like, what's the point of even using an ult at that point? DeToNator now back on this high ground are going to make Libalent fight for every inch just to get to the payload. Now kept going down early, though, is good as they sound barrier out to open the fight. Yeah, no supports. And Trona, who was trying to get too clever on the flank, now just has to take a long walk to get back to his team. They do lose Hotade, though, and now actually in the fight, Raphael and Trona could just swing this one back over because Pepper has to do the work of 2 DPSs, and Bexel is doing the work of an extra as well. Raphael finally going down without using the ults, but Jasper alone on the payload. Darton wants to hold on to the ultimate to maximize time, but now all he's doing is getting time. He's not going to be able to get pressure and kills off it. Pulse bomb out from Pepper not going to do enough as Bexel's still getting kills through, and DeToNator can get spawns back, whereas Libalent can't.
It was actually incredible because DeToNator lost both supports, all the other 4 members still held down, and even now, Raphael gets back in time. There's both Dragon Blades went into play.
8 health, 2 health. Oh, he just barely scrapes out, but he did it, man. 2 health remaining, had all the kills that they needed to make that work. That is so close. Hotade coming through when it counts, and maybe even a bit of luck involved there as well.
That was just back and forth because DeToNator they were on the back foot, but they held up with the other 4 members while the 2 supports died. And then suddenly, Alice came in, disadvantaged, still taking on the fight. Hotade was the big hero of that to really push it on through in the overtime. Now with still only 1 minute remaining, they're not out of the water yet. In fact, the water just gets hotter from here.
Yeah, in fact, I wouldn't even say they were on the back foot. I'd say they'd already fallen off the back of the cliff, but luckily for them, Genji has a double jump. Speaking of, Keisuke down to Raphael's Genji here once again, as Libalent just getting really hard dove here, not quite reacting adequately. Getting aggressive though, picking out Nakyup is good for them. Oh, nice catching double. Raphael. That's big for Hotade now. Already very close to his ultimate. And he needs to back off. There we go. Gets out with his life, keeps the payload moving. This is very good for Libalent now.
It's a lot of kills on the way for LS as they move on through. And Trona with the ultimate's going to have to wait for the respawn. DeToNator, luckily enough, they have enough time to actually get themselves prepared for this final fight with the ultimates to do it as well. This is exactly where they can make the hold up. And without enough time remaining, LS might just not cap it on through.
Yeah, DeToNator need to prepare, and LS need to prepare as well. Good stick onto the Diva. It actually picks Nakyup. That's a decent start for them because it forces out the self-destruct, which, oh dear, getting Hotade is terrible for them because he had the Dragon Blade that could have been so huge, and they don't have Jasper's mech. Keisuke is struggling to keep himself alive here. Selena's going to use the ultimate, but they don't have much to go off here. Trona hasn't actually been answered to on the backside. Pepper finally coming around to deal with him, but he's still alive. Raphael with his Dragon Blade opens up, and the team piles in. Hotade may be able to rejoin, but unless he gets another miracle here, I don't think they can really push this one through. That last little bit, he finally joins in, but he's too low, goes down, not finding anything. All the members are dead. The gong does sound as well, and the stall is completed. DeToNator hold.
That is about the opposite of a miracle. You just see right at the last few moments, Hotade running with the Dragon Blade, and we've learned to kind of expect some good things out of this guy because Raphael usually delivers, and Hotade's had some fantastic moments, but fortunately, or unfortunately, that was not one of them.
Not one is one way to put it. I mean, compared to getting a 3k and surviving on 2 HP while the rest of your team cleans up, going in with your Dragon Blade with most of your team already dead and
like
getting nothing.
Opposite.
And also dying just before it went down as well. He actually didn't need to be positioned quite as aggressively as he was. Could have been a little bit more conservative before getting that ultimate up, but they almost reacted to DeToNator's dive well. Almost. And traded very evenly up until the point where they lost those crucial tank minutes.
And speaking of conservative as well, DeToNator Korea had the, decided well to, after losing so many members at the start of this third phase, this third cap on through as the cart was moving in, Alice had such great trades. It was just racking up these kills, moving on the cart through, and then for DeToNator, they didn't need to do anything there except just fall back, collect themselves, regroup, because they knew they were advantaged. They knew they had the 4 ultimates. They knew they could just come in and, with all the tools they had available, just collect the victory right then and there. Getting Hotate right off the bat was probably one of the key things that got them there, because Raphael collected a bunch of other kills before he finally went down, but it just wasn't enough, and Hotate couldn't be the hero.
And that's the thing as well, it was maybe salvageable for Libalent had they had Hotate, because he could have tipped the balance in their favor. That was the last tool they had to do that, but without that, by that point, going even isn't going to help you. Because of the defending side's respawns, you need to tip the balance somehow. No one was able to do that for them. Certainly not Pepper, certainly not Hotate, but defense is a different situation, and they did get a good amount of distance. Let's see if this time they can stop up DeToNator.
The only thing to consider is DeToNator had a really rough first cap, and at least if they can get a much better first cap in terms of defense, in terms of time, they can really leverage that and use that later on to their benefit.
They need to really buy their time and play patient here though, and so far they are doing that. Looking for their opening to go aggressive onto DeToNator, but DeToNator looking to do the same. Now that's a really great opportunity. Didn't quite deflect the sleep dart, but Celine getting picked off is still big for them anyway. Pressure off the Hotate, and this time they close out on Kisuke as Trona goes in for the wraparounds. How are they always finding these healers so isolated? Who is protecting the healers on Libalent?
Well, the problem for Libalent is that wasn't their goal. Their goal, they had members, especially the DPS members, attacking the cards. So while the DeToNator members were attacking the supports, Libalent were doing the exact same thing. Unfortunately, Libalent didn't come out on top. DeToNator got the supports, and they are now pushing on through.
It's almost like a lack of focus. I want to make a slight correction to you there, my friend, because it's not like they're attacking the supports. It's like they're just sort of attacking everyone. Whereas DeToNator are going very specifically for someone at a certain time, and the difference in focus between these two teams is really showing, it seems. So now on the actual payload itself, a trade back and forth is okay, but losing Jasper's mech, now Darrington as well, means actually, wow, Hotate coming through, never mind that. It was looking very rough for a second. Without those tanks, often Libalent kind of crumbled, but this time around, they had that extra bit to close out the last few.
And I think Hotate really went off there. They get awarded with a bit of a gong. They didn't get the official gong, but I'll give it to them because that was full 6
The unofficial
kills.
gong.
The unofficial gong, as it were. DeToNator Korea just have to go for this reset here as Alice get themselves prepared. A lot of ultimates coming into play now. Waiting for Celine's Transcendence will be absolutely key, because that's going to be the defensive tool that gets everyone alive and keeps them going.
Pepper now looking to get around the backside of this, but already losing Hotate earlier. And they're just kind of split here. They're letting DeToNator pick them apart. This is very, very rough for them as Bexel finding Celine. The self-destruct on the payload itself, they were trying to make space, but they themselves were scattered. So there's not really anything they can do with that space. Darrington picked off, and now the last few members of Libalent going down. Pepper even going wide with the pulse bomb just to add insult to injury. Payload back underway. Maybe an opportunity for a last-minute contest to run down the clock, but looks like this point will go the way of DeToNator.
Even Pepper getting picked out at the end. They don't even have time to wait for this. Alice just got to go, and Celine Transcendence super early just to contest. Where the rest of the Supreme members, though, they got to get in.
And like you said, Hotate can at least open up with this Dragon Blade, but he's already getting damaged out. They found him. He backs up to get some healing and can go back in. Sound Barrier on him gives him an opening to do that, but they need to wait out the self-destruct now as Hotate's already committed the play. Now he joins the fight with no really anyone in his sight, given that he had to wait for so long for that self-destruct. And while that's happening, Raphael and Bexel go absolutely ham on the point. The rest is history.
And DeToNator even lost him there, so it could have been a really dicey fight for them. They didn't have the Transcendence, and both teams were in a situation where Transcendence was going to be really important for keeping their team alive, but both teams lost the Transcendence. Unfortunately for LS, DeToNator still had Raphael picking up kills when LS, in the same situation, just couldn't get them.
And now going for a very aggressive push here, DeToNator. This could blow up in their faces if they're not careful. Bexel has the ultimate to commit to keep himself alive, but that was a forced ultimate out of him. As now Libalent going on the aggressive, and rightfully so, as they pick him and Ivar's mech. Now Raphael even going down for good measure. Darrington did it to commit his ultimate for it, but that's actually good. They punished DeToNator's overextension. They stopped them from getting any kind of significant snowball, and now they get an opportunity for a more conventional defense.
I think you said it right there. DeToNator had to be careful not to get picked up by being overly aggressive. They did start to back up, but not before Alice really caught up to them, cleaned up a couple of members. It really started with Ivar losing his mech. As soon as that happened, the rest of DeToNator just kind of fell apart, losing an additional couple of members right at the last moments. That was time that DeToNator didn't want to give up, and now they had to.
Celine already dead at the top of this one, so Trona again Oh, wow. How many times is that going to happen? Look, I'm not even in this game, and Trona has tilted me, right? Pepper at least answering back, though. So without those two supports, DeToNator find themselves leading for ultimates, but Ivar converting with the recall of the mechable things. Jasper now actually forced to use his own self-destruct. Doesn't find anything for it, and the DPS is just getting pressured out. Jasper can't get back into the mech, so DeToNator are going to keep this payload underway.
DeToNator do that with, again, minimal ultimates converted, or rather minimal ultimates used and committed by themselves. Him dies again with Transcendence. It works out because he doesn't even need the Transcendence. Raphael, Trona, they keep the fight alive for the team. And Trona went on this really big flank, so he wasn't even a part of the fight at the start. He joined midway through and was still impactful.
All DeToNator really need to do, though, is run down the clock here because they can just hold up. Oh, Trona getting the pulse bomb in. That's a good way to start this one off for Libalent. Now, on the defense, they want to keep this one alive, remember, but Raphael finding his counterpart before Hotari could Dragon Blade. Now rejoins the fight, trying to do some more damage, and he's actually finding ways to do it just because the members of Libalent were already so low. Even though they'd lost their healer, even though Libalent were trying to convert kills, they're stalling out for time here, which I do at least like given the way this game has currently gone. Time helps them, but the caps will go over the way of DeToNator anyway.
And if allies don't force out ultimates here, DeToNator can snowball on through extremely well. They're still sitting on a decent number of ultimates, still going to charge up even more. Allies have no support ultimates, they got no defense, they got a lot of offense, but I don't think they're going to carve on through because Natgyup should respond with the sound barrier.
They've got to really leverage Hotari's Dragon Blade as well. He's struggled to go off so far on this defense in the same way that he has on the offense.
This flank.
Oh, man.
This could do a lot. He's so close to Pulse Bomb, he just needs one clip straight into a Pulse Bomb. The fight does start near the cart, so the cart gets slowed up.
Yeah, and that's really good for them. Forced out the sound barrier and actually got the kill anyway onto him. That was very nice for a start for them, and Hotari does convert with his Dragon Blade this time. They even forced out the self-destruct there, which was a little bit spicy, but they got the kill through. Pepper getting a little bit bandied about here, but Vexel using the ult. They can't really get payload distance often.
That is a wall climb you don't see often.
Didn't even know you could actually climb up that. But look, now Vexel's actually in a bit too deep. The payload hasn't really been moving. They've exhausted all their options, and Vexel may even go down for this. Oh, actually, no, retreating. Now Hotari's got to go down. Oh, dearie me.
That's not where you want to go down, especially with the card distance. Only, it's just shortening. The gap is definitely shortening.
And now Jasper
pick up another pulse bomb pretty soon. Raphael still sitting on the Dragon Blade that he died with earlier. The kills are still going through.
All that aggression that DeToNator had, that over-aggression, Libalent reacted poorly. They didn't punish it, and then they punished it too late. Now DeToNator actually have the opportunity to just straight up open up. Transcendence is good. It stops up most of the Dragon Blade, but after that's done, he's just one squishy robot with no oil in his joints. And him now with his own Transcendence. Good pick onto Natgyup and Ivar's mech out of the picture as well, but Hotari again would need to pull off a miracle. They're trying to make it happen though as they convert onto him, and they may just be able to stop it up for a minute here. They're putting a lot of respect here to Vexel, and how is it Hotari is constantly finding himself unable to retreat? He does need to live, and he does do so, but now he needs to fully retreat, and it's going to take him a long time to actually regroup with his team while Vexel goes on the aggressive.
DeToNator actually running out of time here. I do believe Ellis should be able to stop this one up. Their respawn distance is really helping them out in the last few moments with only 40 seconds remaining. This is kind of make or break. DeToNator can push on through. They will qualify to Season 2 or LS will force their 5th map. Anything could happen.
Yeah, this is, like we said, really down to the wire now. 30 seconds remaining. DeToNator actually a little bit lean for tools. Committed some very late in that fight. Perhaps not necessary. Notably out of Vexel. A key still into a fall. The pulse bomb in from Trona, who doesn't catch anything. But oh, Darrington dies before ulting. They trade back onto him though. That is a good something as Hotari is pressured out. Goes on in. Finds Vexel. Good open and out converts. Another one onto Trona, who had just popped Jasper's mech. So call it revenge. Raphael down. This is exactly what they needed.
5 seconds.
Self-destruct from Ivar, not enough. Gets back into the mech, but he's the only one left there. Pulse bomb to add insult to injury, and unless Vexel can die for it, no, he cannot, and we are going to a Game 5.
Oh wow, this is like a repeat of the online qualifiers all over again. They went to a map 5 then, and we're going to a map 5 now. All smiles on the Libalent Supreme side because they knew how close they had cut it right towards the end, and DeToNator Korea, I mean, that was really rough for them, losing the members where they did right in the last few moments. With only 5-6 seconds remaining, they just couldn't pull on through. And Hotate, he might as well be the hero again because he really saved everyone right in the last few moments with that Dragon Blade.
And on the whole, Libalent's defense was actually better. Here's the thing, right? DeToNator Korea had 2 good places where they defended. They defended well on the first defensive spot of the streets phase, and then they defended well at the very end when they actually stopped up the cart altogether. Whereas Libalent, they defended fairly well across each and every point. It wasn't huge, they didn't completely stop them up, but they ran down the clock in a lot of places DeToNator Korea did not do to them. So look, it's hard to say what's better, having a good hold and completely holding out or running down the clock. And in this case, it was running down the clock was better because actually where DeToNator Korea weren't fully holding, they were getting absolutely flattened.
DeToNator Korea had a really good run right until the end. I think the third cap was when they got slowed down. The Streets phase was a fairly well-controlled game for them. First cap as well, they had really good moments. In fact, that opening fight for them was extremely good.
Yeah.
Couldn't really say the same about their defense though, because they tried this very aggressive play right into the enemy spawn, or the attacker spawn rather, and it just didn't really work out.
Backfired.
They went 2 for 2, and it just, that's not really what you want to go for here. Now we're about to go into map number 5. It really does end here, but the map pick does, of course, go over to DeToNator Korea. And so far, every team that has picked a map, they have won it. So Libalent Supreme, final chance for them as well. Both teams now in the final leg of the qualifier. We'll find out what map 5 is after this break. Welcome back from that short break as we're about to head into map 5 of Libalent Supreme versus DeToNator Korea in the OPC Season 2 qualifiers, and it will be the final chance for either team to try and make it into Season 2 of OPC.
Man, what a nail-biter for both of these teams. Hearts must surely be pounding right now at the E Stadium in Chinese Taipei. This is about as tense as it gets. This is your last shot for both of these teams. It is going to a Game 5, and like you said, it is currently a repeat of what happened in the online qualifier when these teams met. It went to a full Game 5, and it ultimately fell the way of DeToNator Korea. Also, these two teams have traded win for win for win for win. If it follows that pattern, DeToNator Korea would take it out. So it is on Libalent Supreme to step up to the plate here, prove that they can beat them one last time and qualify for OPC season.
Just, for the sake of, tradition, it feels like DeToNator Korea are the home side here because they get map picks 1, 3, and 5.
Kind of does, actually, yeah. So the interesting thing about that is also teams have won the maps they've picked, with, of course, the exception being the first one. But Libalent did pick the last hybrid and won it. So in terms of game mode, Libalent had the better record on hybrid, but who really knows, because we're going to Hollywood. This is new ground for both of these teams.
Yeah, I definitely think so as well. So, I can see a lot of different things here. Hollywood is, in terms of hybrid at least, where you see the most out there kind of strats. This is where the triple support thing exists. This is, a good map for Orisa Torbjorn as well. You can even see Pharmacy here. There's just a lot of things you can consider. Widowmaker's viable. Everything's just viable.
It's like the movies
It's the most
themselves.
balanced map in all of Overwatch, because it's the only map where everything's viable.
Yeah, but still no one plays Symmetra. So his
Symmetra not viable.
It's kind of like actual Hollywood, like in terms of the movies. Like there's so much variety. Like you could see a comedy, you could see a drama, you could see a crime flick. Like the world is your oyster.
But not for Symmetra. They don't
Not for Symmetra. No, you can't see Symmetra anymore. Sorry. Go home.
Not in Hollywood. That is a little bit disappointing.
It's like NSFH, not safe for Hollywood.
That's the thing. That's just so there has to be a good reason. I would like to think for DeToNator Korea, certainly something they prepared specifically for this map. I'd be quite surprised if they go onto Hollywood and then just play the standard Tracy Genji they've been playing for basically the entire night. This is the one map where teams do get to flex out a bit. And, again, if DeToNator Korea go into this without flexing out, it is a bit strange.
Look at this team.
It's a really interesting kind of duo if you think about it, Tracer and Genji, because it's like,
they're the ones fighting in the comic.
Well, it's like ex-experimental Air Force who has probably had like one of the most traumatic things that can happen to you, but then like I guess Genji kind of has as well. It's like, I don't know, an ascended ninja cyborg and an English Air Force pilot. What a dynamic duo, man.
Yep.
Who would have pinned that one? It's like the Nice Guys where it was Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, and it was great, but no one could have predicted that.
It's the cyborgs, man. They always come out on top.
In Tracer Genji, which one is Ryan Gosling and which one's Russell Crowe, do you think?
No, I don't.
In any case, we'll see which team is actually the winner. That's what really counts, and already, him getting picked, Pepper going off on the aggressive on the aggressive here, rather. Raphael getting picked as well. They do get one trade back on the Daratin, but it will not be enough here. Unless Bexel gets a great kill here, and he indeed does actually. They really need to deal with this monkey, and even losing the mech for Jasper. They're not actually converting the kills onto these tanks who are pulling so much weight. Finally demeching Ivar, but honestly, they've lost Jasper anyway. They actually have to back off from this one.
That's actually a really great start, but the thing to consider is with DeToNator Korea, despite the fact that LS got early kills, DeToNator got Hotate. They actually pushed out the DPSs, so you can't snowball those kills. You can't convert them to additional kills if your own DPSs are knocked out.
Yeah, Pepper now once again going aggressive, and oh, good pick on the Ivar, that's big. But Raphael taking down his counterpart, and they're trying so desperately. Getting Bexel here would be huge, indeed they do, but Trona trading back onto the mech. It's a little dicey for DeToNator though. If they can convert onto Raphael, they should be able to secure this one. And they're really trying hard, but they're struggling so much, and Raphael is getting the return kills. Trona is still not dead either. They're finally, where even is Trona on the complete wrong side of this? Raphael finally goes down. Sound Barrier is actually out for Nakyup as he rejoins the fray. That gives Trona some room to breathe. And yeah, Libalent have kind of regrouped, but they're still not really answering. The Selena's regrouping into the fight as well with this Transcendence. No one is actually getting the extra kills, as essentially the fight is now reset as it continues.
Oh, Trona going down is going to really affect them, but Raphael might just get back in time. If he can get a good Dragon Blade, he can really turn away the fight.
And they can stall for it as well, thanks to Bexel's Primal Rage. Here is the Dragon Blade from Hotate, though, to try and close it out before that comes to pass, but not getting much for it, as now it's just two angry gorillas kind of duking it out on the point. Raphael can still swing this back the way of DeToNator, but he needs to probably go for that about now. He's really getting hard pressured. Good catch by Hotate to secure the fight for his team at long last. Hard fought, well won. The payload is going to get underway.
And DeToNator just going to have to take that onto the chin. No reason for them to try and get back onto this. They have already got ultimates out of LS. They're actually way ahead now. Raphael kind of smart to hold on to that. He knew the rest of his team were dead. The rest of the team weren't going to be able to reinforce in time. Already set up on the high ground, so DeToNator should actually get quite aggressive as soon as the doors open.
Absolutely should be the plan, but Libalent already looking to set up Pepper. His pulse bomb target has disappeared. Now Tron actually killing Hotate means Pepper needs to be careful where he stands so that he doesn't actually get collapsed on. Libalent though have the respawns there. Oh, that's a Transcendence out of him. They want to go aggressive, which is maybe a potential misfire. They do pick Jasper's mech, which is something, but Celine respawns. Now Pepper going in, yeah, gets him, now looks for the stick, does connect it, I think, gets Baxel, sorry, that's a good way to go now. Libalent need to convert a few more, and Raphael can still turn it back around. Jasper back in the mech, back out of the mech. He just can't stay in the mech, but he'll tell you who, he takes out Ivar, who actually demeched him, so the ultimate revenge. You take my mech, I take your life.
I think Ellis, they were quite patient with that initial play, because Pepper was on the back line for so long. He was just waiting. He wasn't doing anything up until the fact that Ellis would well respawn. They knew they can go on to the counter aggression there. Pepper gets picked out this time around, but that eventually happens.
Yeah, as a sneaky headshot, really thread the needle, which is unfortunate because actually up until that point, the payload was moving quite consistently, and DeToNator actually had to make a move to aggress, but with that pick, they actually forced Libalent to pull back for a moment.
Now with Hotate's Dragon Blade coming up as well, they're really set up to really trying to push on through, but they got no cart distance, so for everything that's happened, the cart just slides itself backwards, and they haven't made enough progress to really make this fight count for anything.
Now here's going to be the aggression out of Raphael. Let's see what he does and what Hotate does, because so far Raphael finding one backliner, and neither really finding much, but he finds his counterpart, and maybe that's all that'll count here. Bexel going aggressive once again with the Primal Rage, and again it's just two angry gorillas, but the tipping point could be either Trona's Pulse Bomb or Jasper's Self-Destruct. It is hard to say, but ultimately Hotate keeping this point on lockdown. Raphael could try and rejoin. Bexel does pick off Selene, but he goes down for it. And Libalent, they're picking off these last few members. Raphael can't really do much as he rejoins, and Trona not willing to commit the Pulse Bomb, in fact going down. Good fight win by Libalent, very clean.
Unfortunate for him, this is now a few times so far in the series for both Selene and him, just dying moments before Transcendence is available. And that could have changed the fight entirely. That would have allowed Trona to stay in the fight. It would have allowed Raphael to stay in the fight. DeToNator now with the full reset. This is where they need to leverage the ultimates they didn't get to use before.
Now Pepper as well has an ultimate he himself can use as they need to keep Kasuki alive. Unfortunately failed to as him rushes in with the Transcendence. Libalent though, they can just kind of pull back from this. Oh, unfortunately losing Dorado in said retreat, and Hotate was already a bit too deep. Trona as well. This is one thing about Libalent though. When they start losing fights, they are never able to safely retreat. They always seem to muck that up.
4 kills going the way of DeToNator. If actually both teams are able to collect a lot of kills when they get quite aggressive, so I would say that affects both teams. They're not able to retreat safely or cleanly, and there are a lot of casualties, a lot of collateral damage when that happens.
They don't just go all out on the retreat is what it is. They sort of back up a little bit, but just kind of give DeToNator the opportunity to go aggressive themselves. They just need to turn tail and run sometimes.
I'm actually under 1 minute already, so
Yeah.
this is a little bit of a dicey situation.
Yeah,
for
they want to
LS.
just go aggressive instead of turning tail and running, and that's fair because they have the ultimates for it already too in the hands of Hotade there. Both of those healers and picking up Raphael with that self-destruct is good as well. Created the space for the payload to keep moving as well, and now Trono would have to come in with a really spicy contest if at all. Bexel try to make the space for that to happen, but Ivar losing the mech means they can now focus out Bexel. That is indeed what they do, and all he's going to get for his trouble is Celine and a little bit more time off the clock, but this should be another cap now for Libalent.
You know, as we've said already mentioned, a lot of casualties. Raphael will die with ultimate as well. Full wave of respawns for DeToNator, but the cap will go on through. Ultimate's coming online for Alice as they push in with only 15 seconds remaining, so they are scraping it fairly close. And for DeToNator in the final moments, the third cap has usually been when DeToNator really get the good hold on, except King's Row. More so speaking about Dorado now when I'm talking about that, but with 1:30 left, it takes a lot for Alice to get the full cap.
Yeah, well, and also King's Row, they very much accidentally let it through. I mean, it's hard to say how that fight would have actually gone, but in any case, the past is in the past, and there is still a lot of road ahead, like you said. Libalent don't have much time for it, that's what they need. Yeah, Raphael forced back a little bit, Celine gets picked, had Transcendence to use, but opted not to, and that just means the rest of the team find themselves no healer here. Self-destruct committed by Jasper, he will get back into the mech, and they want to use this because him was also traded for. Raphael caught off to the side, good aggression now, but he is able to retreat. Or
Still
not.
a lot of aggression. Wow, Raphael is just barely making out with his life. I think DeToNator overcommitted there,
punished.
and that's going to punish LS a lot. 50 seconds now remaining, and a lot of time bought for DeToNator. They already were on the back foot with 1 minute 30 going to the third cap, and now with the cart having nil movement, this is now going to be an overtime push.
It absolutely is, and they have a few ultimates for it, but to be honest, DeToNator actually have more. Very low economy fight there. Oh, hello.
Hotate, he went into the wrong room.
We may have a bit of a technical difficulty on the side of DeToNator there, so pause going to come out as we look to get these players reconnected back into the match, but oh man, Libalent can actually very much do this. They need a very good fight win, they need to draw out a lot of ultimates, and they need to really snowball, but I'll be honest, they've never actually done that before against this team.
I think it's been difficult. I think they've had a few moments, but generally DeToNator have been the team ahead economy-wise, and that's something that Ardian had a really great grasp of against both of these teams, and specifically when we look at Hanamura, that's where the biggest example of DeToNator Korea pulling out ahead economically across the board, when they're defending, when they're attacking, just every single scenario. So I wouldn't say right now in Hollywood it is necessarily the case yet. Mostly, I would say, yeah, they've been ahead, but actually there's been a lot of neutral moments for both teams, and that's really where Libalent Supreme can have these great fights, really utilize her tard figure as well. That's been one of their key factors to victory, but the time is the biggest disadvantage they have right now because DeToNator had such a great initial aggressive defense on that third cap. The cart distance really says a lot about how the rest of this game progresses.
Yeah, absolutely, and a lot of it is like, the second point was decent for Libalent. They were moving the cart, but they were also really having to scrap for it, and that runs down the clock quite a lot. So as much as we never saw a particular point where DeToNator really held them out, they weren't actually getting quick progress. They weren't getting really convincing fight wins themselves. And when I say, that thing that they've never done yet, it's winning a great fight and then really snowballing hard. They almost did it on Dorado, but actually, they were closer to doing it on King's Row, I'll be completely frank with you, but that was also on the Streets phase, which is a place where it's a little bit easier to do that. On this last point, it's already a hard ask because of the defender's respawn advantage, and you're going into it with an ultimate disadvantage. Like, this is an uphill battle, and they need to really thrive and deliver for this to actually work for them.
I think for LS, their way to win here is they need to collect one good fight win, or at least push DeToNator Korea back without LS actually committing ultimates, or committing very lean ultimates. They didn't
or
get
at least
by.
absorbing detonators.
They need to, all that without getting much loss, but that even affects their time a little bit more. It does seem like technical difficulties do continue, so hopefully the player on the DeToNator Korea team, or side rather, can connect back in time. In the meantime, we're going to be taking a short break while we wait for that to happen, so we'll see you on the other side. Alright, thank you for sticking through that break with us as hopefully all technical issues have been resolved now. Pixel is the player on the DeToNator Korea side who had disconnected, so hopefully he gets back into the game, but we can resume with not a lot of time left for Libalent Supreme to push on in.
Yeah, unfortunately, the odd issue here and there, the Stadium in Taiwan. Actually, I think that's the only real issue we've had. That's actually quite impressive. But in any case, yeah, sorted out, back into it. Libalent Supreme on really the cusp of their final push, and it's dubious whether they'll make it all the way to the end. We were talking before that break about what they'd actually need to do that, and look, it's a tall order. It's a really, really tall order.
Because they need to be able to bank enough ultimates, Libalent Supreme that is, that they can win the initial push where the card is quite close to their spawn, and then win another fight with remaining ultimates to actually get the full cap on at the end. So they have to ration themselves and apply their resources in a way where they don't just throw everything at the wall now, and they have the ability to do that and actually secure the game. So here we go. The game does continue. Pixie continues in 0% ultimate is when it starts.
Which is a little unfortunate for them, but they weren't super close on his anyway. He had committed it in the pipe prior, so let's see now if Libalent can actually get it through to the end. 10 seconds remaining. They are on the payload and need to convert that at first kill.
And it is a small thing that LS can sort of use in their favor. It's not much, but it's something.
They need to find a good spot to dive in though, and they need to stop getting DeToNator so damaged, because they actually have to play for the card itself. Him is going to transcend it on it to mean they can't convert kills, and they go aggressive. DeToNator already down and just getting completely picked apart. Now Raphael opening up. We said it was a tall order, and it was, if only for the ultimate disparity between the two teams. Last ditch ultimate out of Jasper is not going to be enough. Ivars, in fact, does connect on Jasper's max. So there you have it, folks. DeToNator going to hold it up right at the end there, and now it is on Libalent Supreme to hold it up somewhere earlier.
Well, that ended up pretty quick. We just jumped back in and now already out of the game again. You know, having Bexel reconnect into the game, it appears losing the ultimate didn't affect them all too much towards the final moments. Both Genji's, Hotate, and of course, on the other side, Raphael used the Dragon Blade. Unfortunately, Hotate couldn't find anything, couldn't be the hero for his team like he was into Dorado. And for Raphael, just the usual same story as usual. Cuts everybody up, including Hotate on the other side. But we have seen the can't stop up here before on Dorado. This is where DeToNator Korea looked like they got the defense sorted, and then on their own attack, they couldn't cap it on through.
That's a completely valid point. You're quite right. The other thing, though, that very much comes into play here is, honestly, we said that Libalent had a tall order. It would have been a hard one to do, but they didn't even make a play, right? They had to make a play, and it had to be incredibly good, but they didn't even make one. And that's actually a lot of what's cost them. You know, when you are on the attack and you have to be proactive, naturally that's going to cost you, but they are generally proactive on the attack. They are not at all proactive on the defense. They often just kind of let DeToNator make the move. They don't do anything proactive, and that has similarly cost them. So they need to fix that up here if they do want to hold this one out, because that's what they need to do. That's the difference between them qualifying and not.
I think they would like to be proactive, but DeToNator Korea just quicker on the trigger finger. They activated first. You did see the rather quick transcendence coming on through from him. A player that, by the way, has had some rough moments where he's so close to transcendence and just dies without reaching it, or dies with it still available. So, you know, it's DeToNator Korea taking no chances, making sure they secure their defense and iron hard right at the last moments. But the middle sections of the map, right at the start, in the first cap and also in the second cap, didn't go too well for them. And it turns out for DeToNator, it's always on the final moments where they really get their stuff together.
Yeah, no, you're completely right there. So with the attack now open here, DeToNator, they need to crack this point quickly because they want to maximize their time to push all the way to the end. They can't afford to get held up anywhere. So Libalent really want to drag this one out, but already DeToNator are able to take possession of the high ground. Losing him, though, means they are going to struggle a little bit on this, and that means Bexel doesn't get his health topped off, so Libalent really taking advantage of that one, taking advantage of the fact that DeToNator actually separated themselves in that dive for the high ground. They need to not overextend, though, in trying to get both Ivar and Raphael here, but they do get Raphael now back up to the point.
Something to consider is Hollywood is notorious for first cap holds. It's one of the few maps where a lot of teams actually successfully hold this first cap, but it's very difficult for the attack to actually break on through. And DeToNator, while they successfully held down in the third cap, if they don't even make it there, it kind of doesn't even make any difference for them.
You're completely right, and that's the way that Libalent can really just hold on to this, but losing Keisuke, and the dive is completed there by Bexel as well. Just so much cleaner. They do at least run down the clock.
That's a lot of kills.
Yeah, they run down the clock a little bit more than what DeToNator did to them on their attack, but Libalent Supreme have lost this point now. They can actually, if these respawns come through quick enough, they could go for maybe a final one. They would be lacking Hotate at the top of it.
Too risky. I think a little bit too risky. Also, lacking Hotate, one of your main win conditions, is something you shouldn't really be doing. LS at least they sort of deny any good snowball potential out of DeToNator because both teams are very close to completing ultimates, so both teams have the advantage and the ability to take a fight with a lot of presence.
Alright, well now, a lot of ultimates available here for Libalent Supreme, but they need to be proactive with them because right now DeToNator are just occupying all the space here. Libalent aren't really fighting for it. Now they're finally going in with the re-aggression of their own, trying to get onto Bexel. Early Transcendence out from him to stop up Hotati's Dragon Blade, and it does mean it goes to the waste. But they pop Ivar's mech. That is a good opener for them, but they need to absolutely leverage that window. Trona largely unanswered here, now looking for the backliners, but having to recall as the rest of his team starts to get picked apart, and Libalent finally able to be the more proactive team there as they actually re-aggress, and it pays off.
And I actually preferred DeToNator to have saved their ultimates there. Libalent, yes, they won that last fight, but they also used everything to make it happen. DeToNator or Korea, on the other hand, they were willing to just say, we'll test the waters out, we'll use a couple of ultimates, see what we can get away with, but if Libalent Supreme are going to fully commit, we're going to fully back cut at least. We'll lose our members, but we're going to be healthy in terms of ultimate economy.
That's a really good start for Pepper, and Raphael's trying to go aggressive, but they're about to lose Ivar's mech if they're not careful, and Nak up too, yeah, just completely loses his life. So Trotter getting the response onto Jasper's mech probably isn't enough. He's actually about to get that mech back anyway because he's able to pump shots into the retreating members of DeToNator. That was a really solid hold for Libalent, and DeToNator actually really committed resources to that.
And this time, that was a mistake from DeToNator. If you could say last time DeToNator held onto ult specifically on purpose to try and get a better fight the next time around, that better fight never happened. It was just a total disaster once again. This time around though, what they couldn't do before, they need to be able to actually commit now. DeToNator need to be the team that pulls the trigger first, and
once
ultimately they just
again,
both
Pepper,
supports.
this is exactly what Trona was doing the whole time to Libalent, and now Pepper is doing it to them. Like, yeah, doesn't feel so good, does it? And honestly, the fact that DeToNator aren't reacting to their own trick is just devastating here. Look at that.
And DeToNator, they built up a position previously 2 fights ago where Libalent Supreme used absolutely everything. DeToNator had the ultimate advantage. Now they come on through. Ivar even has to reset his entire mech, loses his progress once more, and DeToNator get further and further behind. They've never been this far behind from LS ever in the series.
Same thing again now. People can just dive straight in, commit the pulse bomb if he so chooses. Instead opts to back off as DeToNator commit the sound barrier, but it can't save them from the self-destruct. And the ult economy is looking super efficient here. Darrington maybe didn't need to commit that final ult there as well, but all is well that ends well because DeToNator did commit some of their own, notably that Dragon Blade, and Libalent are totally stopping them up now.
Oh, this is so tough. This is extremely tough. DeToNator now have no ultimates. LS is still sitting on some. The situation is getting absolutely out of control. DeToNator had a decent showing on the first cap, and now this complete Streets phase has just been a non-factor. Pepper might just get another kill.
Pulse Bomb does go wide. They've picked Ivar's mech while that's happening. Him uses the Transcendence that he can join the fight. Hotate, picking Bexel. That was very, very crucial there. Trona does pop Jasper's mech, but they finally close out the kill on him, and the rest of DeToNator are actually crumbling once again. A fight where they actually committed ultimates. Libalent did have to commit some of their own again, but they've recharged the ones they used in the fight prior. This is a very late Dragon Blade from Hotate. Definitely not at all a necessary one, so I'm going to have to rescind a bit of what I just said, actually.
Alex is going to have to hold on with only a Transcendence, but for DeToNator, if they're going to push on through in the Streets phase at all, they're going to have to do it in the overtime. It's going to take them the entire 1 minute 30 just to get to the final moments. They have to win 2 team fights in a row and in quick succession if they're going to do anything at all. In fact, their ability now to actually cap on the whole map might just not even happen.
Wow, him again just pressured out so much. And now they're looking to get the closeout. They do indeed get it. Answer back though onto Hotate. That's big for them. Pepper is really their only DPS now. And Trona can absolutely go up. This is a window, and it is one they're converting on as Darrington is down. Was not able to ult. Libalent, they actually just need to give space here. They aren't getting trades here, and they'll just die if they go in, but they make the mistake of going in, and now they're going to lose any potential ground. That's the first fight DeToNator needed to win. They need to win one more, but Libalent aren't looking too hot for it. They do have some ultimates, but DeToNator have the momentum.
Yeah, one clean fight. DeToNator, if they pull the trigger quite quickly there, they have both the Dragon Blade and a Sound Barrier, so they can defend and attack at the same time. Libalent Supreme cannot be the second team to ult. They need to pull the trigger even before DeToNator do, and they can still hold this up.
Pepper needs to get a great pulse bomb. Can't quite get that exact same flank as last time, so needs to find another way to kind of wrap around the backside. Hotate pressured out though. Where is he diving that he's in such trouble? Yeah, punish for going aggressive on him, and Hotate the same now. Struggling to retreat, cannot get back to Selene, who has now used this Transcendence for less than nothing because he does not have DPS who can convert off it. No one is securing kills on DeToNator, and they needed to get those 2 fights wins. They're on the cusp of getting the second one. Bexel the only one to go down, and now they are the ones with the ultimate advantage. That was a complete misfire for Libalent. Libalent.
And Libalent Supreme, Selene even alternate that. He's going to regret it now because the cap will go on through. It is overtime, but time now additionally has been added. We've seen this before. Libalent Supreme got in the same situation. 1 minute 30 is what they had to work with. They barely pushed on through. DeToNator Korea have even less than 1 minute 30, but they do have a lot more ultimates to play with than LS did in the same situation.
Otari needs to get a really big Dragon Blade, and he needs to get it up quick smart as well. Honestly, the DPS being so split and so awkwardly positioned as the response came in from DeToNator cost them horribly. Oh, down before the Transcendence.
Should have ulted.
Big ultimate. Indeed should have ulted. Again, how is he not reading that Pepper is just diving him over and over? Now Raphael trying to turn it back around, but he's making it work. Jasper needs to commit a self-destruct here. He does it. He failed to and goes down there. The self-destruct finding nothing. That's a huge cleanup. Otari needs a miracle
Bring
play.
the gong.
Deriton has no ult. Indeed, the gong looking to be rung. Otari, can he even do it? They actually have time for one last fight.
They absolutely, and Ellis saved enough ultimates here, so this is going to be really big. 34 seconds remaining. I don't think DeToNator have a chance.
Whoever wins this fight qualifies.
Absolutely. This is the fight that gets you into Season 2. Look at where the card is.
It's so close. Less than 4 meters, in fact. Otari looking for the window to go aggressive in an early sound barrier, but they do need to deal with Bexel on the backside. They are trying to deal with all these members, but they don't know who to start with. Self-destruct on the point. Ivar gets 2! That's massive. Selene, Transcendence, clutch in there as they convert onto Nakab. Now Otari, he finds him. He needs more. He needs a lot more. This could be the Dragon Blade that wins it, or the one that falls short of the mark. They're trying to get Raphael, the gentleman's duel, and it's a duel to the death. But the respawns, they do favor LS, but they are going down on the point. Ivar, they pick Trono. This could be it.
Raphael has played.
He's got Ivar. He's got him in that pilot form, and Jasper rejoining it. DeToNator, they have no one, and Raphael does not get the blade out. Congratulations, Libalent Supreme, and welcome to Season 2.
Japan, they've met their mark. They're going to qualify, and we are going to get at least one Japanese team. It could have been 0. It could have been 2 Korean teams, but no, only 1 Korean team will make it into Season 2, and 1 Japanese team will now join them off the back of it.
Don't let anyone tell you that Koreans are just better, because today they were not. It was tight. And where they had won before, where DeToNator Korea overcame Libalent in the online portion of the qualifier, Libalent overcome DeToNator where it counts. In that one fight that determined who went home and who went through, and it is Libalent going through. Congratulations.
Oh, that one was a real heart-stopper, I gotta say. I think for both teams as well as us here, and probably everyone watching as well. That was a total heartbreaker, unfortunately, for DeToNator Korea, who came so close to only lose it out then, and they had such a, I would say, competitive, in relative terms speaking, performance against Ardent, who breezed their way through into Season 2. But now for DeToNator, unfortunately, DeToNator Gold already got relegated. Now DeToNator Korea couldn't make it through.
Yeah, and that's the thing. DeToNator, the organization, opted to put this team in that same spot. They sent their own Japanese team packing, and well, Libalent, the Japanese squad, are going to take that spot off them, so DeToNator will not be re-entering the OPC in any kind of form, unfortunately for them. And with that, both Sun Sister and DeToNator from Season 1 have been sent packing completely, and welcome to the OPC now from Korea, Team Ardent, and from Japan, Team Libalent Supreme.
Congratulations is probably a good way to put it. It's a well-balanced now, I think, season, because you do get the full representation from a number of regions.
Yeah.
2 Korean teams would have been pretty scary, but it says a lot about Japan's skill, specifically now Libalent Supreme's skill to overcome a Korean competitor to make their mark and get into, you know, the premier competition in the region. So it's a big win, not just for them, but I think Japan as a whole, because you kind of said, I don't know if we said this on stream, but, you know, at least off air, it was the hopes of the entire nation kind of rested on them as well.
Exactly. So here's the thing, right? Like I said, don't let anyone tell you that Koreans are just better, because look, 2 Korean teams here, one went through, the other didn't, and the stark difference is Ardent are a team of strong players on a well-gelled team. They work well together, they look good together, and that is just so apparent. They went through. Another Korean team, a lot of unknown members there, but extremely good talent as well. We saw the synergy, it was apparent, but Ardent were better on the whole, and the takeaway there is good teams are good. Today, it was Libalent Supreme and Ardent both who were good enough to go through, and I tell you what, they're going to be coming up against a lot of other good teams in Season 2.
And honestly, for DeToNator Korea as well, I hope that's not all over them. I really hope they can sort of continue from here on and develop their skills further, because this is a team that really has potential. And all smiles on the Libalent side, by the way. They know how hard they had to work for this.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't know what they're exactly playing for here in rock, paper, scissors, but what they did play for much earlier on, or not even much earlier on, just very recently, was that Season 2 spot. They've got it. Now they can rest, but the real journey only begins for them now. The hardest part of their professional careers hasn't even really, come yet.
Yeah, it has, and it hasn't, is the really tricky thing, because they are at least in. So, a team like DeToNator.KR, look, maybe they are an OPC team, maybe they have that skill, and maybe they even have it in a month's time when Season 2 starts, but they don't have it here and now today, and they don't get the opportunity to have all that regular gameplay to increase your skill. They don't get to be tested and forged in fire by those other extremely strong teams in Season 2, whereas Libalent Supreme do. It will be rough, but they will emerge from Season 2, no matter what happens, the stronger. If these two teams even did somehow meet in another promotion relegation somewhere down the line, it actually means it's a tougher ask still for DeToNator.KR than it was today. So in one sense, Libalent Supreme have made it past one of the biggest hurdles they will in their professional careers, but you're right, the rougher road still lies ahead.
It says a lot about what to look forward to in Season 2, and I gotta say, it is looking better than ever. Team Ardiant coming from Korea, ex-Mighty AOED members, they're gonna shake up the top side of that competition in ways unimaginable. Already looking like a team that could make the playoffs, and that's, maybe we're speaking a little bit early here, but the potential is insane. And of course,
and very apparent if you watch
and Libalent Supreme as well. If you thought OPC Season 1 did have some lopsided games, yeah, they absolutely did. And maybe we might see that again if Ardiant take on Libalent Supreme. Look, that series wasn't pretty, but Libalent Supreme got a lot of potential within themselves as well. So Season 2, there's a lot to look forward to, and hopefully we'll see you there as well. And to everyone, I want to give a big thank you and a huge shout out to everyone who has supported us, watched, viewed, liked, subscribed even, for Season 1. It has been a huge journey, 13.5 weeks now. We finished up a whole season. Congratulated Flash Force for taking home the cup, and there will be a new winner and a new champion in the next season, which starts mid-August rather. So one last time, thank you from everyone at the Full Circle team. I've been Kevin Avril Walker. With me for this evening, Matt Pixie Carroll. We've also had Matt Smite Ross and Dallas Easy Fight today throughout the season as well. And this hopefully will not be the last time we will see you. So, good night.